Welcome to the Natchitoches Parish School Board Committee meeting. Silence all of your phones. If there is any one who wants to speak to an agenda item, there are papers on the back that you need to fill out and bring them or pass them to the front so that we can recognize you. I want to pray. I know this is normally not what we do in our community, but I want to pray right quick, and then we will have our roll call, and then we will further proceed in our committee meeting. Lord God, how we thank you, we praise and glorify your name. Lord, we recognize you and we recognize your word. And Lord, as Isaiah 53:5 says, you were wounded for our transgression, you were bruised for our iniquity, the chastisement of our peace was upon you, and by your stripes we are healed. We declare that today, O gracious Father, over loved ones and over friends that are so dear to us. Lord, we pray right now for the continued unity that has been brought and wrought through this system. We thank you for each and every board member. We thank you for our superintendent and all of our employees. We give you praise, glory, and adoration for what you've done and what you're going to do. Lord, I'm not going to be politically correct about who you are, because you are God, and you rule and you super rule. In Jesus' name we do pray. Amen and amen. Roll call.
Ms. Page, would you mind doing the roll call? I'm so sorry.
Mr. Danzig?
Here.
Mr. McQuire?
Here.
Mr. Benefield?
Here.
Mr. Garner?
Here.
Mr. Harris?
Present.
Mrs. Deidro? Here. Mrs. Willis? Mrs. Broadway?
Here.
Mrs. McGaskey? Mrs. Palmer? Here. Mrs. Bell? Here.
Well, we have a quorum. Just before I hand it over to Dr. Eloy, we noticed that there is a representative from Porterbury in Ballard, and we want to ask them to come up now. And just before that, I want to recognize the fact of our superintendent, the extraordinary job that he's doing, and that, just for me, I'm just going to speak for me, any type of problem we have, I call it, he gets on it, takes care of it, and it doesn't have to come out before everybody, because it's taken care of beforehand, and that's the way business is supposed to be taken care of. So I want to compliment you, man.
Well, thank you. I did not see that coming, but I appreciate it. I like you too.
That's an effective administrator there. I know that one very well, having done that myself. So, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, members of the board, Dr. Eloy. My name is David Engel. Once again, I'm here to present to you the audit report for the fiscal year June 30th, 2020 on behalf of Porterbury and Ballard. This is your audit report, and didn't want to go over a couple of good items this year. We've always, since 2016 fiscal year audit report, this is the 5th time I've presented to y'all. We've kind of worked through some system items through the years, and I'm proud to say all those items have pretty much worked their way through, and they've been taken care of, and you must commend your accounting staff and your business affairs director. Everything has kind of gotten to the point to where we want it now. But as far as the audit report goes, I'm presenting to you once again an unqualified audit opinion, which pretty much states that the numbers presented in here are reasonable and can be and reliable for that matter. I want to go to page 24. I just want to kind of go through just a little example here. On page 24, the statement of revenues, expenditures, and changes in fund balance. The left-hand column is your general fund. Just to kind of give you a little just idea of where your financial position is headed towards. The bottom number is pretty much your changes in fund balances, and at the bottom, your cash position, your fund balance position has increased by a little over $300,000 from the prior year. I did want to note that because I remember when I came here and, for the first audit, I think y'all's cash position then was in the $4 million range. So through the years, we have bumped up the general fund, and a lot of improvements been made there. And as far as the solvency, just for just general items here in the school board, everything is kind of looking upward. Didn't want y'all to know that. And now for the other news. We've got on page 98, I do have a couple of audit findings. They're more or less, they're part of the single audit, the two major programs that we audited this year. The first being the National School Lunch Program. We've had this finding once before, and last year we did not audit it, but basically what it is there's a date that the food service director or somebody over there has to get the food count into LDOE to get your reimbursement. I think they give you 10 days after the end of the month. And we had some instances where it was done a lot later. I'm sure there were some extenuating circumstances to some of it, but it's one of those, it's a rule more or less that they require us to look at, and we have to write it every time we see it. So just all that is, I guess it may be just the setup there. It's just getting around to it and getting your reimbursement checks in time. And I think we've discussed that, haven't we, Lee, as far as just...
We have a new director, and it's going in a new direction. Got you there. To get that fixed.
And plus it helps your food service fund too. That way you kind of know your cash is coming in consistently, and you don't have to scramble just in case it gets to a certain point. But that's all that is right there, but that's just whether you got it set up. Second one here is with your special education cluster, your IDEA program. We did have some instances where they were, and Dr. Eloy and I, we went over this too, about the signing of the form stating that you're working this time, and so you could receive the grant funding for it. A lot of the forms are, I guess, some were, they were filled out, but I think they were pre-filled, and you had some signatures missing and all that, and we had to, I looked at about 100% of them. It's just simple paperwork there and getting it done, and just more or less incomplete, not properly filled out. Supervisor signatures were not even noted, but yet they were getting the funding for it. But I imagine that'll probably be taking care of itself now. Do y'all have new personnel there now? I think Lee was mentioning, I think the personnel there, they're going to be retiring or something?
Possibly, yes.
Possibly. Gotcha there. Let's make sure we get that done there. But other than that, I mean, from an audit standpoint, I look at them as more or less minor findings. It's not a major finding where we're missing any money or we don't know where money belongs or something like that. It's just more or less compliance and just getting down to doing that. But other than that, I mean, as far as the rest of the audit report, we didn't have anything that was a material weakness or anything material non-compliance in the audit. And for that, I would be commending your accounting staff for that. But other than that, I'm gonna kind of open the floor if anybody's got some questions regarding the audit.
I'm excited getting it the first week of April instead of August.
I agree. This almost didn't happen today. Lee got the rep letter signed today. I called the office. I said, print me out a bunch, and 10:30 these things were printed, and 11:30 I was on my way here. I didn't want to miss another deadline. I wanted to get this one to y'all. So, any other questions? All right. Appreciate y'all's business. I appreciate your time there. Thank y'all.
Thank you very much.
Yes, sir. Okay, let me pull up this microphone. So, I know y'all are surprised, but I have a bit of a lengthy superintendent report tonight, so please bear with me. But I think it's some very important information. We'll start with one really exciting note. I got an email right before I came in, and I just kind of penciled this in. We have our first person who's passed the praxis, specifically from the 240 tutoring. And so their entire praxis cost was reimbursed to them. They did. So I got that email this afternoon from Miss Julie Wright, and I don't have the name yet, but as long as they don't feel bad with me telling them who they are, we are going to try to celebrate them this Thursday because we are super excited about that.
Dr. Eloy,
Yes, ma'am.
how much was the test?
Miss Page, do you know how much the test costs?
They vary from 60 to 120, I think.
Yeah, and so we pay for the 240 tutoring, and then if they pass the test, then we also pay for that, and then we also pay for them to do schooling and things of that nature. And we're going to keep doing that because we think it's important. COVID news, this past month, March, has been really good for us as far as reported cases. We have under 4 cases for both teachers and students. We're still in phase 3. The CDC is now saying we can be 3 feet apart, but we are still telling our folks that 6 feet is the gold standard. Natchitoches Parish is at 2.8% positivity rate, slightly higher than it was, but what we're really looking at is that we are below 3%, and we have been below 5% since February 25th statewide. All those things combined really paint a picture that we are in a good place. We're doing good things in terms of COVID. 27.4% of the state has initiated vaccinations. We are encouraging all of our employees to be vaccinated still. We have a link on our website where they can go sign up. We also have the health centers that are providing that. And then now with the governor moving to 16 and above, we would also encourage parents to venture out with their 16, 17, and obviously 18-year-olds can do as they please. But we would encourage all those folks to get vaccinated because we see the proof in the pudding. So with all that being said, what we're seeing COVID is in a much different location than it was 9 months ago. And what we feel, there's a need to pivot somewhat in terms of how we are approaching this from an instructional standpoint. I remember the heated discussions we had 9 months ago, or really 11 months ago, close to a year, about the need for a virtual option. And we still feel as though that's necessary to a degree, but we really feel like the climate is different in terms of COVID. And so what we would like to transition to is really setting some standards on what denotes, what entails being able to be allowed to be in virtual school. Now this is going to have to be brought to y'all, in May, but a list of criteria where you would have to meet these criteria to be eligible for virtual school. And again, this isn't just an arbitrary decision. This is based on the fact that we do feel as though the vaccines are getting out there and all those things. And we're also looking at other districts and what they're doing. And so at the same time where we're trying to kind of pivot away from remote learning for the masses, we are also at the same time creating a standalone virtual school. The standalone virtual school, I'm happy to tell y'all that I've already been talking to Miss Christy Eichel. She's been at Lakeview Junior High. She has accepted that we would like to transfer her to be principal over the virtual school. And what she would do, she would create this program where many districts already have it. In fact, many of them have had it for close to a decade. And this would allow students who are homebound, students who are expelled, students who are behind in their coursework, students who want to accelerate because maybe they are doing the associate's degree and they want to get ahead on a class that they think they can do online. And then also students who have a true hardship. The platform, we would also switch from Google Classroom to Edgenuity, because that's a true, completely online platform that really speaks more to a virtual school as opposed to remote learning. So we're kind of trying to draw that line for y'all, that there's remote learning, which we did this year, and then there's virtual online school, which we're pivoting to. Students would be able to apply for that. Ms. Eichel and her team are working on that right now, the handbook, and they're taking information from other districts, because we don't need to really recreate the wheel, and get people to apply who say, this is a real need in my family. Now, again, we're wanting to move away from the COVID stuff, but there are still going to be families that have a true need for COVID, where there's someone with multiple comorbid conditions, and for whatever reason they can't get the vaccine, things of that nature. And so we're working out those things where the virtual option would be an option, but the requirements for students and things we're tossing around, you would have had to successfully been in virtual this year. So that means at least a C average, probably an attendance requirement, less than a certain amount of absences, which we're still discussing. Obviously, we would want to make sure that while you were in virtual this year, you weren't a disciplinary issue in virtual, and you took it seriously. Maybe some teacher recommendations, approval from administration, and then also if it's a medical diagnosis, we would want to have proof of that medical diagnosis. We are right now at about 18% of our district is still in virtual school. I have spoken to 62 parents over the past 2 days. As I told you on the last board meeting, I was going to be reaching out to the 200 folks who left us. One of the major themes that came out of that, and I'm going to come back to it in a second, but one of the major themes was, we're coming back. The folks who've been doing virtual, almost to a T, said, it worked for this year, but we're coming back. We can't wait to come back. Can you take us back now? And then, we will allow that. But those are some things we want to talk about. Next month, we will provide you with a very specific plan of how to get in virtual, what exactly virtual program looks like, and we'll have Ms. Eichel here, and she'll be able to answer some questions. But we are extremely excited about that, and we just feel as though right now it's time to pivot. That being said, if COVID numbers, God forbid, take a change, we're ready to pivot right back if we have to. Summer school kind of goes along with that. Summer school, we are really excited about that. Unfortunately this year, because of the schedule, school ends for students on June 3rd, for teachers on June 4th. Summer school will start June 7th and run until the 24th. That was just purely a scheduling dilemma. We have the preliminary numbers of students who failed who will need to go to summer school. But we're also trying to, we're going to know by the end of this week how many teachers we'll have for summer school. We're doing a survey to see who's interested. And by the end of this week, we'll know how many teacher spots there are, so we can offer how many student spots. Now, the difference this year with summer school as opposed to previous years is that this year summer school will truly be a camp atmosphere. It will be 8 o'clock to 3 o'clock, but only 2 or 3 of those hours will be true academic instruction of ELA and math. The rest of the time will be a camp-like atmosphere, art, PE, music. So we want to offer it to those students who need it, obviously, but then if we are able to offer it to another 500 students, then it will be free childcare with transportation, food provided, and that's afforded to us by the ESSER 2 and ESSER 3 dollars. We're going to have a video coming out that's really going to kind of show that this is camp. We have a few names being tossed out there, and they're all kind of lame right now, so we won't share them with you, but we are refining that, and we'll get those to you in the next month. The tentative sites, we have Fairview, which will serve the Fairview, Goldana, Lakeview communities, and that'll be all ages 1st through 8th. Then Magnet will serve in-town, Marthaville, and Province Hall for 3rd through 8th grade students. Vaughn will be 1st and 2nd for both Marthaville, Province Hall, and in-town schools. We also have a pre-K3 program that will be separate from this, that's covered by a different grant, that will also be very important. And then the high schools will be tentatively at both high schools, obviously, and that'll be, more information will be coming out about that soon. Again, we'll know more information this Friday after our committee meets and we get student and teacher numbers. As I told y'all before, I've called 62 parents. It was a great experience because I found out stuff that you just don't find out not talking to parents. They told me, in some cases, more than I wanted to know, but it was all good because they told me 3 big themes. They left us because of COVID, and it was very specific to COVID, but they're ready to come back. Second thing they told us is they left because some of these programs are offering them a flexibility that we simply could not offer in some ways. And in some ways, we may never be able to offer that flexibility. But there's things we can still learn from those other programs. And so I was interested in those as well. And then finally, many of them, the 62, I would say over 60% of them had a common refrain. Many of them left at that between 8th and 9th grade year because they were looking for a smaller school experience. They didn't say anything bad about Natchitoches Central or Lakeview, but they just said we wanted somewhere that was similar to where we already were. And that's actually going to be a topic of conversation here in a little bit. Federal dollars, COVID money. I'm going to save some of this because I know Ms. Palmer has an agenda item under the executive report that most of this will go to. But right now we're looking at all of the, there's a lot of strings attached to this money. There's a lot of money, but there's going to be a lot of things that we have to adhere to. But it's still going to offer some really exciting things, and I think we'll have some good news for y'all later in the agenda when Ms. Tenke's item comes up. This next item, it's going to sound a little laborious, but I want to really hit on it. The hiring process for our instructional specialists. There's going to be a lot of eyes on these instructional specialists, and there should be. We're putting a lot of investment, a lot of time, money, energy, etc. And really this is kind of the driving force of our vision for the district. We want the eyes on the process. But I want to be very transparent with how we're doing this. Because I keep hearing the refrain from people that say, oh, it's a good old boy system. Y'all are going to give this to, your friends and so on and so forth. So I want to let you know, we spent no less than 6 hours last Thursday talking about one item. And that one item was, how do we interview these people? 6 hours where we discussed every detail of how we do this and how we do it equitably and fairly. The first thing is we are consulting with Ms. Kathy Noel in her role as part of the State Department. And she's done this at DeSoto, and she's helping us now because she's a resident here and she works with the state. And she said, hey, I can tell y'all some of the potholes. So that's one thing. And the next thing is the application process is extremely rigorous. We've had people already say, oh, I don't know about that. And that's good, because if they're not willing to do that, then they're probably not willing to put in the work. So they have to film a video of themselves teaching. They have to do 3 letters of recommendation that are professional letters. They have to provide documentation of how they move students. So it's not just saying, oh, I'm a good teacher, here's my resume. The process itself is going to weed people out. Then what we're going to do is we're having the 2 informational meetings, which I'm going to share that PowerPoint with y'all later this week via email, and you'll see that we're being very honest with them about how hard this job is. The other part is I will be completely outside of this process. We will put a diverse committee together made up of different gender and race and experience and age, etc., that will look at these and provide inter-rater reliability. We will get to a natural cut line where if everyone scores a certain group and then we see a massive jump, then we'll keep that group and that'll form a pool of candidates. Then we will probably pull in some principals to give them some degree of choice in their position that they're filling. And we feel at every level we are being extremely transparent, and we want people to know that we don't want, the cousins and bubbas and friends and all that. We want the best. And it doesn't matter if they're in district, out of district, whatever. We want the best. And that's our commitment to y'all as a board. And we are saying that to everyone, and we are more than happy to share our process with everyone as we go forward. I did want to mention real quick, Mr. Kozad is working on some recruitment tools for the website. Pretty soon, many of you have noted that you go to the website and you just see a salary schedule that's upside down, sideways, and it's Xerox copy. Pretty soon you'll be able to go to the website, type in how many years of experience you have, type in the job you want, type in your education, and I hope that's the sound it makes. Pretty soon it'll spit out how much money you will make in this district and an estimate of your tax checks, and we think that's going to be a really good recruiting tool, because a lot of people, when you say you don't have it on the website, they just go on to another parish. LEAP 2025 will start April 26th, so I'll just wish our students good luck on that. I want to mention that, and Miss Laura Lyles is here from A Plus Coalition, and the Tech Ed Grant, which is worth $7,000 in technology, has been extended to April 9th. We highly encourage our classroom folks to please apply for that. And finally, trips. Last week, Mr. Wascom and Miss Pinckney and myself went to Walker, Louisiana, and observed an amazing school with some amazing opportunities. The school had a bank in it, it had its own pizza place in it, it had all sorts of entrepreneurial businesses and just opportunities for kids in it. It was amazing. We got some great insight into their programs. And then tomorrow we will be doing the same thing with Mr. Mike back there, and we will be going to Bossier Career Center and observing their process and what they're doing. The idea is that there's a lot of good ideas out there, and we don't care whose ideas they are. We just want to see what can work and what will work for the students and folks of Natchitoches Parish. So, that being said, there is one last thing, and it's not, I just wanted to give you a heads up that I thought I had put it on the agenda, and this is my fault, I did not. So on Thursday's agenda, you will have 2 additional items, but I wanted to preface it in my superintendent's report to tell you that we are going to put an agenda item for Thursday to raise the summer school teacher salary from $20 an hour to $35 an hour. This will be paid out of federal funds. It'll be specific to this year alone, and this is to recruit our folks for summer school in a year that's going to be hard to recruit. We also would like to propose to y'all to change the hourly stipend pay from 20 to 25. We did a poll of our surrounding districts. We are below the average, and so that'll get us to the average. And then at the same time, our daily sub pay is below the area average. So we want to increase our daily sub pay. This is not your long-term subs, they're on a higher rate. This is your daily subs, because right now after taxes, some of these subs barely take home $25, $30 after taxes for a day's worth of work. And if you've ever been in a school, it's not a lot of money to do that. So we'd like to raise the minimum from $50 to $60 a day, and the maximum from $75 to $90. And the 2 in between is from 55 to 65 and from 60 to 70. But I will send you some more documentation on that. I just wanted to fill you in before Thursday's meeting. So I know that was a lot. Any questions?
Okay. All right, old business?
I didn't call to get it put on the agenda for what I was going on. But the survey we did with the going to that, did we get it in, you know?
Yes, sir. So what we were able to do is we were able to send out to the principals a textable, well, they could use their cell phones to reach it. And those who didn't have access to their cell phones, they went to a terminal in the office to access it. And overwhelmingly, it was the same results for teachers, for support staff, for everyone. It was overwhelming that everyone basically wants to keep everything exactly the same as it is on every count. I can send y'all the exact screenshots of the pie graphs that show you who voted or how it was voted. We don't have individual answers or anything like that because it was anonymous, but we can send that all to y'all.
All right, I'd like to see it.
All right, old business, Mr. Wascom, approving a possible donation of Hoochville property.
Okay. Well, we brought this up at the last meeting. Wanted to, I have Ricky Sanders is here as well, and would like to make a further presentation, as well as our attorney, Joe Staney. So I'd like to invite them up to come and speak. And so Joe, if you would.
Thank you, Leah. Hello, everyone. Appreciate the opportunity to be here and visit with y'all. In essence, what we've been doing is working on the best format to arrange for the transfer of the Clutcheville school property to the target donee, which is the Natchitoches Parish Fire Protection District 1. And what we're proposing is a cooperative endeavor agreement and deed, which will in essence transfer this property to this entity, which is also, of course, a political subdivision in the state of Louisiana. There's several reasons why we want to do this. It's in essence an abandoned property for us. And because of its nature of being an abandoned property, it's a liability risk exposure for us to continue to own it. We're going to have to continue to otherwise pay insurance costs and incur other potential security cost issues, maintenance costs. And again, the purpose of this is to, in addition, to find some other better use for the property this time. And what the Fire Protection District #1 has proposed is to accept the transfer of this property to them. They will accept it as is and with whatever conditions it's in. And they'll have the duty going forward to insure it, to maintain it, and to also make its best possible use for the public. That would include housing the Fire District 1's fire station itself and its operations, including the fire trucks themselves, as well as all their fire protection equipment. But it's going to transcend that. This will be a multi-use building for not only for them, but what they propose is for the community as a whole. There'll be opportunities not only for them to use this to house the operations, but also to use the building for educational purposes, to train their own firefighters with regard to their continuing education obligations and new training methods. But on top of all of that, they'll be able to use it as a fitness center for their firefighters. The good thing is these folks don't want to stop there. They want to find other ways that this property can also benefit not just the Clutcheville community, but the entire south end of the parish. There's discussions for law enforcement to potentially locate an office at the facility that they would work with these folks on, as well as possibly the ambulance service to house a location there, and even looking at some other educational-based options. Moreover, they're looking at using it as a multi-use facility for purposes of a community location, to have it for purposes of ultimately the community to be able to use this facility for the Clutcheville folks as well as the other folks in the south end of the parish. So we think it's a great idea. We're working on the actual final information that would go in the cooperative endeavor agreement and deed. And then this will require a resolution to be brought before the board as a whole to ultimately review the final aspects of the proposed transfer and to approve it through that resolution and give Dr. Eloy the opportunity to ultimately to sign off on the transfer. We hope that Ricky and his group are going to be able to have their work done potentially this week such that we can be in a position to bring this back before the board on Thursday for your final review and consideration.
Ricky's here. You want to say anything?
I think Joe covered it. If y'all have any questions that I can try to answer.
Are we looking at just the building or the surrounding property, or how much of the property?
It's 13 acres that we own. There's a track in the back. It's kind of an L-shaped piece of property. It's that we would retain mineral rights.
We're gonna try to keep every ounce of it up, is what our plan is. So far as we're hoping maybe get a walking track put in as part of the physical deal, which people can use. That's what we foresee, and then the building, like we talked about the last time, just like what Joe said, that's, our proposal is 5-year deal, hopefully to get all these people that we want involved in it. So we can, like I said, for the whole south end of the parish, not just Clutcheville.
Will your funding for this come from where? How are you gonna fund the renovations and?
We have a millage tax for the fire department, and we also have a parcel tax for the fire department. We've been running a little under budget. We've been able to put money back. We've got, I want to say, 300,000 in CDs put up that was allocated for a new station. We've been looking for property to build a new place. And so that's,
we took the fire department from nothing to where we're at. And we got a good bunch that's on board with making sure that we stay under budget and be able to cover just like this here. So I guess the answer to your question is, we're gonna operate off of the taxes that we have.
May I ask a question?
If you don't mind, I have a question.
Yes, did you, like, with the legislative auditor approve expenses for things other than direct fire department expenses?
I don't know, I would have to check with them to make sure. But no, ma'am, we don't make a move without checking with them to stay on board. We went through audit not long ago.
I know, but this would be something new.
Yes, ma'am, we're getting it totally to use as a fire station. The other entities that comes in, then we would have to do a lease agreement with, and to follow up under the rules.
And some of those entities that might be subleasing from them would also be a revenue generator.
Ms. Fields.
Yes, I have a question. How would it help, or would it help the fire rating in the area for the citizens that live in the Quintreville area? Do you feel like it would have an impact on that?
Yes, ma'am. Better access to get to people. Where we're at now, we're down Emmanuel Road. If y'all been down there, Emmanuel Road is not great. Even we have great response times. We've dropped our rating from an unrated 10 to a 7. We're going for a rating again this coming year of trying to go for a 5, with hoping nothing less than a 6, which is only good. I mean, it helps the people in the parish with their insurance rates. The people that live down there should have seen a pretty drastic drop in insurance. But that's, yeah, the training goes toward the rating. Like the training we do in-house, the physical facilities, if we can build a training ground on there, it ups we have more rating numbers, so it helps us all the way around. And that's what we are hoping for.
You indicated possibly to be rented or leased for community use, such as what?
Well, we want to make a community center.
Okay.
It's going to be for anybody to use. It's not going to be just for the town. It's
Well, we
going
have specific programs for the community center whereby you'll be, checking for grants for continued operation of those community programs.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
You mentioned about the other entities and things like that. Have you been able to confirm with any of those other entities?
I've got a letter of interest from the Sheriff's Department.
Okay.
The hospital, as of right now, they just want to keep everything on hold till we get it and see where they're at with COVID. I feel that they're still very interested. It's just with the COVID stuff right now, everything's kind of up in the air. And the library over here, Ms. McGrath, me and her talked, she's definitely on board of trying to get a library back down in the building. And the ambulance, they're on the same page with the hospital. They just want to wait, see how everything pans out. But like I said, in the talks, they're interested. And there is also 5 other people that's interested in opening up some sort of VOTEC that they've talked to me about, but I haven't nailed down anything with them.
Any other
I would
questions?
like to see Joe in this agreement if we do this. At any of the former classes from Pletcherville High have their reunion there free of charge.
Part of the language that's contained in the concurrent proposed cooperative endeavor agreement does recognize that the Cleachville School and its tradition should be recognized with regard to the community outreach. So that is definitely is part of the discussions, and I know that's their intent to do that. And again, the way these other groups could come in, Billy Joe, would be via subleases, and they would be responsible for having their own insurance. The fire district would be an additional insured under those insurance policies. So it's a win-win for everybody. Not only would this be a multi-use facility for the entire community in the south end of the parish, but in addition to everything else, it takes a heck of a burden off the school board because, you know, there's even been a break-in down there since yeah, you're right, since we've not been actively involved in. And I will tell you, I know a few attorneys that might try to somehow take unfortunate advantage of such things, and we don't want that. We don't want that. I have never met one. I've heard theories of these things. And so, to avoid that potential attraction, something we might call in the legal business an attractive nuisance, we don't want that. We want to try to limit our exposure, and the exposure is significant. And just being able to get an exposure off our insurance alone is going to be a substantial savings. Again, let alone us not having to continue to endure not only the risk exposure that we have, but any continued maintenance just to avoid dilapidation, which could result in someone being harmed. So many win-wins that they're almost limitless with regard to some of the benefits.
I'll say this, that if Coochville classes are anything like in North Louisiana, Jonesboro, Shady Grove, they have a big reunion of all of their different classes, and they give money to that school.
And that's exactly what we want. We want the people to come back. You know, that's the reason I've been talking to Emil ever since it closed. And I wanted to get our hands on it before it went down to make sure that if we get it where it's not dilapidated, then we can maintain it. But if I gotta put a big sum of money in it to bring it back up, then we would be in the back. But we done a walkthrough, me and Lee, and it really just don't need a whole bunch of work. It's still in real good shape.
Mr. Clark, anything?
I've been working with them, want to get rid of it for the community, because it will be a nice thing where they'll be able to have meetings and with, because even though I've talked with, I still call it police jury, but I've talked with several of them, and they say if they ever come through or whatever, they're just waiting, and they will put they've been wanting to put, if the people in the community want an ambulance down there, they'll have to put it, because you have it out west and you have it up north. And the south end is, don't have one, and I've talked with them, and they say all we have to do, the community people, go to one of the meetings and have it put on there and request that we want it, and we could all go, really just about force them to put one down there, because it's got one in all other districts or whatever.
And just in the conversations I've had, they don't want me to broadcast anything, and I promised them I wouldn't. But I don't think you're gonna have to go to that.
Yeah, that's what they were saying, you know, because if the people want it down there, you know, because they would, you know, our tax dollars is just like the tax dollars in the west and the north end, you know, if we want one, they should be able to maintain one down there, and they've been saying that they're looking for years to put it down there. And even with the fire department, with the property behind it, that'll help them with their training and when they're doing their water shelters and stuff like that, and it's an easier get in and out for them than where they at now.
Well, I guess if y'all have no more questions, I will tell y'all this. I have talked to my board, and all of them are on board with it. So we're just waiting for y'all to present us with some paperwork, and we'll.
Well, I'd like to speak to that, yeah. Okay.
Okay.
On the second page of the agenda tonight, in number 9, under finance, we would like to, we're gonna present a resolution that isn't quite yet fleshed out, is that correct, or we're working out some legal?
Right.
But by Thursday, we would like to present a resolution allowing Dr. Eloy to sign on behalf of the school board whenever this document is prepared. You're just simply authorizing him to sign on our behalf. The documents will probably not be finished until the fire district has finished their necessary legal side.
Right.
And then Dr. Eloy can sign sort of a closing, you know what I mean? At a closing, as it generally happens at any real estate deal. So we will try to be presenting the resolution authorizing Dr. Eloy to sign on y'all's behalf by Thursday. So any questions on that?
And Mr. Stamey, he's gonna review that before.
Yes, that'll all be reviewed.
Yes.
That'll all be reviewed and be ready. It may take a month or two before this is finished.
Yeah.
So it's just gonna be whenever the legal work has been finished. That's when. He's representing us. Ricky, I guess we'll have to have his firm, representing his firm, we'll have to verify, and they all have to work it out. So.
Will the letter of interest from the sheriff's department be in that package?
It can be, I mean.
Do you want him to present it to, you wanna present it at the Thursday meeting, or just have me email it out to everybody?
Yeah, I'll just email it to you then.
I tell you what, if you're okay, Reba, I'll get it from him, and I'll just email it to the board, if that's all right.
That's perfect.
Perfect, okay. And, so any other, the one thing you might wanna think about is just any other thoughts about how you would, what your concerns like maintaining our mineral rights, right? Any concerns about once we transfer ownership, anything we don't wanna be too restrictive, because we don't wanna allow them to do their job. But like, is there anything else we need to do?
The proposed agreement does show that we reserve all mineral rights, and it also, again, specifically states that they're accepting the property as is, that we're under no obligation to conduct any renovations, remediations, or anything of that nature. And they will be alerted to any challenges that might be, that we are aware of with regard to the property before it's transferred.
So we're able to look over it before we actually vote on it anyway.
I'm actually setting this up to where y'all just authorize Dr. Eloy to do it, and we can close any time. There would be no further action after Thursday, unless y'all are asking to take a look at all the closing documents. That would be y'all's call.
I think they need to.
Is this simply for review, or do you want to do it in an open meeting?
Simply for review.
So you want me to email the closing documents out?
I think that would be good, because.
I think that's fair.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Absolutely.
So when y'all have them prepared, send them to me, I'll get them out to the entire board for their review.
Will do.
And then if there's any, concerns, we go from there, we'll make adjustments.
Sure.
Is everybody okay with the process? I've never done this before, but I really do want this, I'm really concerned that this building will eventually start to degrade to such a point, we will then have to, like we did with the 9th grade center, have to pay to demolish it. I don't wanna do that. It's a great building. It really is meaningful to a lot of people in that community.
I totally agree with that, and I do appreciate the transparency of it too, by supplying us those documents. That's
Oh,
awesome.
sure.
That's perfect.
That's no problem. Okay? So that's kind of.
Everybody good with that?
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you.
On the consent agenda, Mr. Wascom,
Yes, sir.
just had some, folks who just need some clarification on, like E1B about the, parish-wide broadband, cable vendor, things like that.
Okay,
You just send
we're
it out.
asking in this particular page, on the top of page 2, to request to advertise for some food service equipment as well as selective vendor to deploy. We need to be ready to go once it's in, like for instance, once we have the trunk line in place in July, we would like to, we're asking y'all's permission to create a request for proposals to have whatever vendors want to participate, create, and give us proposals. And we are going to have specific.
Yeah, let me piggyback that real quick, because I just wanna make sure y'all know, the trunk line is the one thing. This is talking about.
It's in place.
Yes, this is talking about the expansion off the trunk line. Where we're at right now, and the reason we wanna put this out there is we wanna be prepared for when LDOE gets back to us. If y'all recall, I think probably 2 months ago, we have sent in a request, probably a month and a half ago, to LDOE to get back to us on just the legality of everything that we're wanting to do, this private-public partnership. They have now sent that to the Eastern District of the federal court for review, and they have also sent it to the U.S. Department of Education. We are still waiting to hear back. There's been an email chain of at least five emails from LDOE to USDOE. As soon as we hear back from them, we want to be ready to go if we get the green light from them. So that's what this is all about.
And we will also, if we award a kind of vendor, the vendor will only proceed pending funding.
Right.
If we get no funding or somehow something messed up, it's off.
Right.
You know, it'll just be off at that point, because I don't want to spend money with this with the stimulus money inappropriately. So that's what we're looking to do. It's just select our vendor, it's in place, we can start getting things prepared so that we're not waiting another 3 or 4 months.
Right.
Because I really would like to have this moving as soon as possible.
Great. Any questions from the board? Okay. Mr. Daniel?
Item number 1, take appropriate action on bids. We do not have any bids that I'm aware of at this time. Item number 2, receipt of transportation report. Matthew.
Hello.
Didn't see you.
We don't have any updates as of right now. Just continuing to train and getting ready to start preparing for summer school.
Thank you. Item number 3, City Tax Commission report, Mr. Watson.
Okay. Tax Commission sales are, let's just get to it's printed on both sides, everything, but the very last page, there's a front and back. It's the front of that page. If you look at the bottom, this is the last column about difference percentage. It has from July of 2020 to the end of February. Our running percentage right now is a 7.21% increase in sales tax. That is still running very good. The actual month, if you go back one page from that, you'll see, you're looking for the one that says distributions, because that's actually what we get. You go back 2 pages actually. At the bottom of the one that says Natchitoches Parish School Board fiscal year sales tax distribution, at the bottom of this page, this is a month by month how well and not. So it's 2 pages back from the 2 pages back from the back of the pamphlet. So it's actually, we had a 7.32% increase in sales taxes for the month, but the cumulative for the year since July is a 7.21% increase. I'm very encouraged by this, because you can see mid-month, a few months ago, it was slow, but we seem to be turning it. It seems to be now headed back up again. This is all good, considering that February sales are actually the sales that happened in January, and so that's all really encouraging. I was concerned about December, January, just seeing how things were going to get back up and running for the rest of the year. And still, it seems like everything is going. Since then, I will say that a lot of people, as y'all all know, have received their stimulus money, and that usually will inject a lot. So I'm hoping actually for next month to be even up even more. A lot of places have actually had record sales in certain areas of their business. So is there any further questions about the sales tax report?
Ma'am, are you just showing off with the 20-year?
No, this is
History
actually
on
Jeremy
that.
McWhorter did all. Jeremy McWhorter prepares these, this is his showing off of his collections.
You did good.
So,
Item number 4, the budget update.
yes, okay, once again, that's the, let's see, pull it out. Okay, the general fund spending looks good, pretty much in order. The actual revenue is almost, in line exactly. Okay, so on the front page, the very first line, second column and third column, if you compare those two, that's the 2020 actual year-to-date at this time, and the year-to-date 2021. I mean, you can see there, it's literally within $2,000 of the exact same amount of revenue coming in.
That's crazy.
Yes, so, but if you look at expenses, we're down about $2 million, well, $1.5 million, over last year in the general fund, okay? Now, under child nutrition, the difference between revenue and expenses is that revenue is down $127,811 over, but we are slowly closing the gap. I reported we got a big check-in last month. We did get that check-in, but we also had some additional expenses. But anyhow, that gap used to be in the 450,000 range, and it is still closing.
Some of that is reduced meals.
It has to do with, we have fixed expenses and we have reduced the number of meals that we serve, so we have certain staff we have to pay no matter what. And so we have fixed costs that are kind of where they need to be. And we're finally catching up, right, with billing. Because the start of COVID, things was very tentative. But we're now in a rhythm, I think. I'm hoping by June we will close the gap. And if we can just get food service to just be at neutral, that would be a good thing. That would be great. Title I is, I mean, it is kind of what it is right now. Some of this, the expenses have to do with spending some of the the CARES Act money from the previous that carried forward. So we spent it since July 1, but it actually is money that we were over last year. At the end of the previous year, because the money had actually come in. This is us spending literally about $330,000 more. That's just some of that ESSER. Now remember, it's $3 million we got in, and it mainly came through the Title I cycle. Okay. So I'm very comfortable with everything on the budget right now. What I see here. Do y'all have any questions?
Mr. Watson, you've been able to find money every month. You're waiting on that. Thank you.
The MFP adjustments we had to make were kind of upsetting, but I think that you are going to hear some reports of money as we start as the ESSER 2, what the federal government calls the ESSER 2 money is coming in as the stimulus money. So I will soon have more reports on additional funds, but at this time, we're at a pause.
And if you want to go ahead and go with the.
Well, Ms. Hicks is not here. Oh, you're talking about the maintenance, yes. Yes, sure. The maintenance report is just, it's a read. Let's see, I have it right here.
Yeah, I got it, but, there's some of the board meeting that's, wanting to have Mr. Jocelyn to come and start making.
Every meeting?
Yes.
Is that?
That's fine.
All right, I will notify him. How about if we delay then this report till Thursday's meeting?
That'd be great.
And I'll ask him to come at Thursday's meeting.
Yeah, and you said the junior high, was get hard with the roofing and all.
Yes, sir, the dome, particularly the dome.
And y'all had to do a lot of emergency repairs and it's just funneling back to FEMA. Can you catch us up on where that is?
Okay, FEMA in general, really.
Well, I'm not talking about the finance. You said.
No, not the finance, but in general, we have a lot of reports, like FEMA, we got on the Natchitoches magnet, the other day, did the inspection. Now, how these inspections go is we're literally showing them on a camera because they can't show up on site anymore. So we're sitting there showing them what's going on. So what we think of as a fix, they said, no, we don't want to just fix it. We want to replace the metal portion of that roof and replace the whole metal portion. I said, oh, well, that's different than what I had. I had in mind to do a fix, you know. And they said, no, we wouldn't like you to replace the metal.
So the scope has gotten bigger.
So the amount I had in mind, how much this would be, is much greater. So I have no idea when they actually get on NJH what they're going to actually say. I can tell you that the forensic engineer's report, which I could actually share with y'all, showed exactly what kind of damage and stuff was going on with that particular dome. They
haven't spoken about it since then, so.
Well, there hasn't been much to report. Honestly, we're behind because we're waiting on our insurance report to come in, which we did a tour of all the campuses in September. Our insurance company has still not yet reported their findings, and FEMA can't really move forward because it has to do with duplication. We can't get money from our insurance company and then get a duplicating payment on the same exact damage from FEMA. They don't allow that. So the insurance company comes in first, and then FEMA takes over from there. And that's kind of what's slowing this process down right now. We have Sarah Burkhalter is here. She has been assigned right now to just do nothing but work with FEMA. It's a lot of work, ladies and gentlemen, all the information. So we've had a Hurricane Laura was a record-breaking event. Then a second Hurricane Delta, which actually did not do that much damage. We had a snowstorm in January, and then we had a record snowstorm. So we actually have 2 FEMA cycles going on now at the same time. Plus, we're having a hard time getting the insurance companies to show up and do their reports with us. So anyhow, it's going to be a long process. I was hoping to have the reimbursements from FEMA come in a little sooner. I'm not quite convinced they'll come in before the close of this year. I think that's where we're extending. We probably won't even have all our inspections finished before the end of May.
The reason I was asking is that you said you've gotten the leaks pretty much stopped or contained.
Yes, sir.
That was the big question.
Yes, because our buildings are not going to hold up very well if they're leaking or there's moisture penetration, because a mold and other rot will set in, and now you've got a really big problem. So I actually, when I first showed up here in September, that was my goal, was to get all the leaks plugged. But for instance, we might have a leak this big and we patched it, but the permanent fix is what FEMA's going to help us do. They're going to help us permanently fix it, which in the case of Natchitoches Magnet was replace metal. There are 59 sheets of metal. I'm like, oh, that takes a $100,000 fix to, $500,000 fix. It really expands the project. And it actually is going to make the workout may take years to actually finish all this, but we are fixed until the permanent fix arrives. I'll guarantee all that.
So are we using BRE to?
Yes, we are initially doing, there's multiple categories with FEMA. There's debris removal. They will refund the debris removal at 100%. The category B, which was the emergency patches, that is, that's about 90% refundable. And then category E, which is the long-term fix, that is, I think yes, we were recategorized as a 90% refund. So all we have to do is contribute 10%. But I'm hoping before the end of June that we will have FEMA will reimburse us for all the category A and B expenses we've already covered. But yes, we have fronted out of our fund money, and that's what's interesting. No, actually, BRE is not in the general fund report. But yes, we have funded this out of BRE. We are simply fronting money out of BRE until refunded. So I have to tell you all that. That's what's happening here. So, okay. Any other questions?
Let's go back to number,
Food service.
Yeah, food service.
Well, food service, Ms. Hicks has other obligations. She's willing and certainly welcome to show up Thursday as well. But I pretty much summed it up. Everything is actually, I think, we're closing the gap. Our goal is to get to neutral with food service by the end of the year. I think it's done. FEMA, by the way, is promising to pay us the $96,000 we lost 100% of the food. I literally had to give them pictures of the food in the dumpster. I wanted to make sure we weren't, fooling them, so I had to sit there and go hunt down pictures of the food being thrown in the dumpster. So that was fun, but we got it done and we sent it to them. So we didn't just send reports, we sent a third-party evaluation of the food and we sent pictures of the stuff.
Proof that it wasn't a dumpster?
Proof that it just wasn't, I'm sure a lot of people try to always fool the federal government, and so we had to provide proof every step of the way. And that's still happening now with all these reviews.
And item number 8.
So, and that says Mr. Watson, we're actually gonna tag team this a little bit, but I'm gonna start off. So, as the board knows, we've been discussing, you have that map over there, which shows we have 5 districts within the school district, taxing districts. This has nothing to do with political districts or any of y'all's things of that nature. But we have 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10.
How do I do this so everybody gets to see it? I'll be Van of White.
So
we have 6, 8, and 10, and then we have 7, and then this is District 9.
So what happened is when Clutcheville closed, Clutcheville becomes, and this is their term, and by there I mean the state, a non-functioning school district. There's not a school there, so all the supporting taxes that people used to pay in District 6
down here,
no longer exist. They only pay their constitutionally mandated taxes. Now those students are still in this district, and they go to Province Hall, they go to Natchitoches Central, they go to Magnet, they go to the lab schools. But there's no longer any tax base because we're not taxing them, because again, they are a non-functioning school district to support those schools, even though they are attending those schools. It's not their fault. The school closed down. You also have a model in the sense of District 7 and District 9. You have a model in the sense that if I live in Goldana, my student goes to Goldana through elementary and junior high, then they go to Lakeview, and at the same time, all the money that I put into taxes is following them for their entire academic career. Same thing in District 9. I send my student to LP Vaughn, Weaver, East, NJH, NCHS, all that money, all my student is in that District 9. We have a bit of an aberration when we talk about District 6, 8, and 10, or as I refer to them, Clutcheville, Province Hall, and Marthaville. Those 3, you have one pre-K through 8th, another pre-K through 8th, and then a non-functioning school district. So if you look at the model of what the other districts do, there's an idea that we've been discussing. We've been talking to, what's the law firm? I'm sorry, Mr. Watson.
Mr. Foley?
Foley.
Yes.
And initially we were discussing consolidating these districts, and they told us we would have to go to the Louisiana legislature, we'd have to have a bill very specific to us. That's the only way it could work. Recently they came out with information that said, no, you can do this.
Attorney General ruling.
Attorney General ruling that said you can do this. And they actually said we can do this without a vote of the people. But we very much believe that that would be kind of antithetical to what we've been doing here about transparency and collaboration, etc. So what we would propose to do is we would consolidate Districts 6, 8, and 10 into one. I think we've termed it a super district. It would be called District 11, and that's just a name because then you'd have 7, 9, 11, which kind of makes sense. And what that would do is then you would be able to have the folks in Clutcheville support that district as a whole. And Mr. Watson, can you explain a little bit of the nuance of the taxes, how that could be kind of?
Well, first of all, right now we have the Marthaville area in District 10 taxing and supporting strongly their school, Marthaville, K through 8, and then we have Province Hall as well with no taxes here, but all the children out of District 6 are attending school in District 8. And also some, I guess I really don't know the busing cycle in this area, but my understanding is the vast majority are going to Province Hall. What we would like to do in combining these 3 is create one BRE. The BRE is Building, Repairs, and Equipment, okay? that's a tax that's getting ready to expire, which I keep announcing renewals for at each of these board meetings in the past. But that's getting ready to expire at the end of 2021. What we would like to do is consider consolidation into one district, a new super district. Well, not really super district, it was just a new consolidated district number 11. And then have the whole area create one BRE.
And so this is very American in its philosophy, because it's taxation with representation, whereas currently you have some of these students that their money is going to the parents are paying, but then they may go to another school. So then you might ask, well, what's the incentive for us to do this besides it making good fiscal sense? And the incentive that we believe, not only does this make good fiscal sense, but also the fact that we talked about models. You have the county model, which 2 schools feeding a high school. You have the city school model, multiple elementaries and junior highs feeding 1 high school. We would like to adopt that model. So along with this consolidation, we are proposing, and we'd like to have 2 community meetings about this. We would have had 3, but currently, and it's kind of apropos based on our previous conversation, there's not a place to meet in Clutcheville based on COVID. There will be.
We donate the place, there will be.
But we would like to have 2 community meetings, and I'm announcing this now, on April 20th at Provençal. There will be a meeting. Anyone in the district is invited. Anyone who has a stake in this is invited to discuss this matter of consolidation. April 22nd, the same meeting will be held at 6 p.m. at Marthaville. We put out a notice about this. But the whole idea is if we want to create this model, the next idea would be to create a standalone high school that would service the Clutcheville, Provençal, and Marthaville areas. So why is this something we want to propose? This was something that was in the history of Natchitoches Parish for a long time. It was part of the original desegregation order, but there could never be, no one could ever get it done, basically, is the simple way of saying it. We also believe that, we've been doing some data mining, we've been doing some qualitative interviews. What we keep hearing from people is that there's a desire in the southern part of the parish, the southwest part of the parish, to have a smaller school experience. And we cannot provide that currently at Natchitoches Central. It's not a knock on Natchitoches Central, it's just Natchitoches Central is large. So what would this do? It would reduce the population of Natchitoches Central, while also allowing people to have a method of schooling that they really want and desire and have been asking for, I think for many of y'all, for many years. We also believe that right now we are losing the battle of competition. And what I mean by that is, when I looked at that $1.4 million MFP loss, the only people we could be mad at are ourselves. And I mean that as Natchitoches Parish. Because what those parents told us is that we are not offering them something that they want. So where did they go? They went to the Mannies, they went to the Caddos, they went to the Red Rivers, the DeSotos, the private schools, the homeschool groups. And to a T, every person I talked to in that sample size said the same thing. If we would have had more options, because you have to realize in this parish, you don't have a lot of options. So it's all about creating more options so people don't leave us, don't jump lines, because they're already doing this. And we thoroughly believe that if we don't do something of this nature, that the next shoe that's going to drop is the potential charter school, another private school. We're already seeing that to some degree in certain parts of the parish. So this is a means of being more competitive with our education competitors. The other side of this is what roadblocks do we have? We believe we will only do this if we can attain 3 things. One is diversity. We do not want to create homogeneous schools in this district. And so we would have to determine that our lines, and we're working with ECHO to do this, would maintain a diversity that we're all comfortable with in the parish. And we believe, based on the 2020 census, when that comes out in September, that we'll have the mechanisms to be able to do that. The other thing is we cannot let this endeavor, as exciting as it would be and as cool and as excited as the community would be about a new school, we cannot let Natchitoches Central suffer because of this addition. So the idea would be that we build up and we promote Natchitoches Central at the same time, so that it's not, oh, I want to go to the new shiny school, it's this is where I'm zoned for. The third thing is we would have to ensure that open enrollment is not something that we would consider currently in this district, because what happens with open enrollment is you have a natural kind of evolution in a parish where people, whether it's based on race or based on certain programs or based on certain sports, they inevitably go to certain schools if you have an open enrollment. I've seen it happen in other parishes, and it's no one's fault, it just happens. So we would have to strictly adhere to the districting lines, because at first, if we do this, this would be the new shiny school that some people would just say, oh, it's something new, it's something different, I want to try it. Only if you're in this district. But we feel like, we just did a big project at Lakeview, we're continuing a huge project at Natchitoches Central. If we do this and we do it correctly with the right principles and the right people in place, this won't be the place that people are running to. It'll just be another option for a very large parish. Remember, we're bigger than Rhode Island. I guarantee you Rhode Island has 3 more high schools, or more than 3 high schools. So I know that's a very large item, and we could probably talk about it for a long time, but we are excited to really talk it out at these community meetings on the 20th and 22nd. Questions, comments, concerns?
I would say that Natchitoches Central is probably at capacity. We either have to keep investing in additional, the instinct is to more and more buildings and more space. This would alleviate a large portion of that problem. I also believe that it's not like we're just going to transfer a certain number of students to the new school. I believe that we're going to be recovering some of the ones we've been losing for years. There's possibly as many as 1,000 students.
Over the past decade, we've lost close to $6 million in MFP dollars.
Yes. So how do we pay for this? But the biggest thing, who knows? That's like betting on something that's unknown. But if you actually look at the 204 we just lost, listen to their story. That's a really good example where most of the roads lead back to they want a smaller option. And you look where they're going to smaller options.
And Mr. Walson, what was really interesting about it, not one person said anything negative about Natchitoches Central. They said, it's great, Mr. Gordy's great, the school's great, it's just too big for us. We've been at this school, whether it was Clucheville, Provençal, or Marthaville, we were a community, and now my kids are like, oh my gosh, I'm going to the city of Natchitoches Central. It's not a knock. In fact, they went out of their way to say, it's a great school. We just would like something that's what we're kind of used to, I guess, is the best way of putting it.
What does this do to your number of school board members?
Ma'am?
What does this do to your number of school board members?
They remain the same.
Yeah, that's based on this.
Okay, that's taxing.
3 members?
Well, let's make that clear.
Yeah,
I know the difference in the taxing and the.
Yeah, this is that's the voting zoning there, and this is the taxing zone. This strictly impacts just the taxing districts. It doesn't impact doesn't impact at all any of the voting districts.
Okay, so you'll keep all your school board members?
Yes.
Yeah, there's been no consideration otherwise. There was been no consideration.
I don't think I would have
put me on the spot, but that didn't come up. That didn't come up.
Well, that question did come up just today, so I'm glad you asked it, and I'm glad we clarified.
And I want to hit on one of those 3 things again, and I don't want to belabor the point, but, me and Reverend Harris had a conversation when we came out of DSEG. We do not want to become whether it's de facto or legally, we don't want to become a de facto segregated district. And so this would have to be done with a surgeon's precision to ensure that there's not homogenous schools where this is this race school and this race school. This would have to be done in a way that we make diversity sacrosanct so that these schools are diverse enough to where students are not going to a place that does not look how the community looks.
How would you determine who would be the principal at that new school you have?
That'd be a new position just like any other. We open it up for applications, and Ms. McGaskey, if you'd like to. But no, it'd be treated like anything else. You've had enough of virtual school this year. Yes, ma'am. But no,
I would like to say I would like to say that I have presented to you guys in something that will be presented. It's not refined, so it's not really ready for, public consumption yet, but on the back page of that thing I gave you,
The estimated timeline.
there's an estimated timeline. Now, this comes from us talking to engineers, construction cycles and everything else. The goal would be to be able to open a new high school somewhere around August of 2024.
And that is a very ambitious timeline, but we think it's doable. But that's, there's a lot of variables in here of things that would have to transpire in the proper way in the timeline. Otherwise, you probably do get pushed back a solid year to
Yeah, you probably get
August
pushed back,
2025.
If we miss the August 2024, it's really hard to start up a new school dead center in the middle of the year.
Yeah.
It's almost impossible.
I
So
would
if we
say
missed 2024, we'll then have to wait. Somebody's got some feedback. Is it me? Yeah, it was me. All right. August 2025 would then have to be the de facto fallback if there's too much rain or, some other thing or we hit any obstacles. This is just based on talking to the engineers, estimating construction, talking to the gentleman about passing the BRE taxes and the whole cycle. So this is an ambitious, though everybody feels that this can be accomplished at this cycle.
And we still sticking by, on the 478 with the school board?
No, we're not really officially, speaking with Beverly and several other people, we're not officially saying that this is the place, but it's definitely
So I think
consideration.
the two major options that, as we've talked and discussed, a possibility of something on Highway 6, although we do not own land in that area, and then the other possibility is Waterwell Road, as you said, 478, which we do in fact own land, and there's some infrastructural issues that make it desirable. But part of those informational meetings is you got to realize these three districts are very large and they're spread out. And so we would want to, my favorite word, equity. I think in this case it's geographical equity. So it's how long does it take you to get from Clutcheville versus from Provençal and Marthaville. We would want to consider everyone in that. Now we also have had some really interesting discussions with ECHO, which some of the board members are aware of, that they've talked about, there's going to be some unintended positive consequences if this were to occur, where everyone's commute would be shortened as far as time goes, but we still want to look at, if Clutcheville is 23 miles away, then it wouldn't be fair to make it 2 miles away from Marthaville type thing. So those type of equity issues, but we see as the purpose of these town hall meetings, where we want to hear what people have to say. Now, anecdotally, when I've been talking to these folks, I've asked them every time, I said, what's more important to you? Is it location or size? And they always preface it, well, I don't want to drive an hour, but the majority have said that their major issue is size versus distance. So
yeah, some of these people who are going to other parishes are literally traveling an extreme amount of distance,
Absolutely.
and then coming back and then going and picking them up and back every day.
You got some of the kids that are coming out of Natchitoches riding, an hour and a half to go to Provençal.
And that's actually, that came up, Ms. McGaskey, because I think initially when Clutcheville closed and they made that trip, there was, oh my gosh, this is so far, but to some, I was talking to Miss Martin the other day and some folks out in Provençal, the kids who are coming from Clutcheville out there overwhelmingly are happy with their experience, and if they could stay in this district and stay with their Provençal and their Marthaville and Clutcheville folks, then I think that would just be something they could hang their hat on. And also, that district doesn't have a school anymore. So if we could bring that sense of community and pride back to that district along with everyone else, I think that'd be something really special we can do for the community.
And then, Eco was saying that too, that with the traffic and stuff, it would, cut down on a lot of the traffic out at Natchitoches Central.
It would.
And we would have to look at on Highway 6, as busy as Highway 6, if they would put it out there in Highway 6, what the traffic would be congested out there.
That was unique, that you could be slightly 2 miles further travel, but it would be significantly time savings.
The time would be
because
more,
there would be no traffic on Waterwell Road.
Yeah.
to come and drop off people, if that was selected.
I think what's really important in all this though is all these things we're talking about, we were talking about how do we make it, you know, do this and do that with the timing. But in order for this to occur, because this has been, there's been other times where this has been attempted, there's gonna have to be compromise, I think, from these very unique and different districts.
That's right.
Because otherwise, you know, it can easily die on the vine if we don't kind of have a give and take, so to speak, between the different districts and ultimately build something better for all of them, but give a little in the process.
And another thing with the meeting out of Province, we are asking the people from Cookeville to come because I called a couple of places to try to get meetings and they're not renting a hall or whatever, and we might still have one because the lady was gonna check with her church to see if we could have it at the church or whatever, but I'll let y'all know.
We'll show up.
Yeah,
I'll
Mr.
let y'all
Walsham
know.
and I we are willing to go anywhere and
If it
answer.
come through, I'll let you know. That's what we're asking the people from the Cookeville area to come out to Province, or if they want to even have it at Monterville, to come to Monterville, because we wanted one at Cookeville, but we couldn't find a place to do it. And I even thought about maybe having it outside, but people don't wanna sit down, so we'd have to have chairs, and then we'd have to have a bathroom for them to go to if they need the bathroom, so.
But if someone is willing to come up with a space for us to use out of
Yeah,
we will add that third meeting to
Yeah,
that.
that's what, with that. So if somebody call me, once they call me and they okay it, I'll let y'all know, and we'll try to put a date down to have it down that way.
That'd be great. I'd also like to say to each of the board members, y'all are clearly going to be questioned about this. This document I have handed to you is preliminary. We will finalize it and hand you a more refined document as we can. I know China has a few little changes to make to the existing document we've handed you there, but we would like to have you guys have that in hand, so wherever you're asked, we can supply it to you digitally as well as printed, so that you guys can have something so you're well informed. Or even if you're outside the district, it takes all 11 y'all to do this. So I want y'all to be fully aware of what, you know, is coming up. And if you have really good questions that need to be resolved, we want to hear it all. Please email us, Dr. Eagle and I, about any interesting questions you were asked you didn't know how to answer. Because we need to make sure we have a complete story, not complete answer, a completely well thought out plan to putting this high school in place.
Have you had questions from parents, in these areas, being interested in, a junior high, elementary school, to be added to that,
well,
school in a district?
let's say,
that particular new school?
well, let's say that we did select Waterwell Road location. Let's say that that was selected. You do have 640 acres we own already there. So you have the flexibility wherever this board wants to take this in the future. I mean, if you pull off something like you did with Campty, where you have a high school and a junior high right beside it, all those things are possible. I just wanted to focus on the high school because that's the first demand. And if you look at our experience with Lakeview, we have a very strongly populated high school and it's kind of lightly populated junior high. And what we would like to do is make sure at least we get the high school right and then see how everything else develops. You could move other things there, but I really don't want to, we need the high school. We are currently happy with the existing elementary schools.
That's what I was about to ask. The parents are happy with Marthaville and Providence House. They just, when it's time for them to go to junior high, not junior, high school, they want a smaller environment.
Right. So y'all are all on the same page, and it sounds like y'all are getting all the same comments we are.
Right.
I'm very concerned that we're competitive in this district so that we're here, we're established. So let's be competitive, let's compete against the possibility of new competition moving into our district, like has happened in other districts in the state, and make sure we provide an option so people don't seek out competition, our potential competition.
And I think we all know, we have some momentum. We have some buy-in that this district hasn't had in a while, and we have some excitement. If we are not innovative, if we do not do some things to be competitive, then we'll be back at square one, if not farther. I'm sorry.
I'm just curious, looking at the populations of these schools and the kids who are from Clergyville, plus the ones who are going out of district? Approximately, what's the number?
So we lost, when Clucheville closed, we lost 85 students, I believe.
Yes, of the 180 that were there,
We lost those.
180 some odd made it to Provençal, few came to the Natchitoches district, the rest disappeared.
We would say approximately another 100 in Provençal and Marthaville are leaving us. They were leaving us more often at the junior high level when they went from that 8th to 9th grade, but now we're seeing it throughout. Because some folks are saying, well, you know, if I'm ultimately going to go to Manning, why don't I try to jump to Sabine now? You know, and so they do that earlier. We also have a large number of folks who are teaching in those districts and they do hardships and things of that nature. Now, the other part of this is that we do believe there would be discussion of reapportioning the district. Now, this would be down the road and before we get to that point where you might take in some areas into this new district to make sure that you could get to that 400 number, because that's really what we're looking at, 2A, about 400 students, and we do think that's achievable, isn't it?
There's some issues with that because we have existing bond debt.
Yes.
So we're gonna have to work that out. That would have to go to before the people to vote to make some changes in that area. Yes, sir.
Mr. Shanahan.
Dr. Eli, I was curious, you were speaking of people going to Manning and Red River. Did the families move? If the families didn't move, why is this happening?
So what we're finding is any myriad of ways that people find a way to move to another district, and sometimes that's a legitimate move. You know, we have parents all the time who call and say, you know, we moved 2 miles over the line and so now we live here, and you know, that's fine, but they're making that move, initiating that move because they feel like there's something better across that line. But then there's also people who, cousin lives over here, grandma lives over here, and I can use a bill, I can use a residence. They can do all sorts of things, and if you've been with a school district for any amount of time, folks find a way. And some of those things we can combat in certain ways, and some of those things we, short of being Sherlock Holmes and having a full investigative unit, it's difficult for the district who's losing them, and it's difficult for the district who's receiving them to really police that in any meaningful way. I think the larger issue is that why are they doing that? Why are they taking the initiative to jump lines? Because if I have the tools to prevent it, I would, but then at the same time, I also respect the fact that as a parent myself, as parents on this board, it becomes very hard to be altruistic when you're a parent. You have these high ideals, you have these, I'm gonna live out what I believe, and then all of a sudden, you have that first kid and you're like, oh my God, where are they gonna go to kindergarten? And I think these parents are making legitimate decisions based on their perception of Natchitoches Parish. Some of it's real, some of it's perceived, but it's our job to change their perception. And some of that's gonna take a good long while, and some of it we can change pretty quickly, and I think we're doing a good job of that. But the main thing is I don't wanna get into with a parent who decides to jump the line. It doesn't make me happy, but I don't wanna fight them on it. I wanna win their business, and I hate to say it that way, but I wanna win their business because we are doing the right things in Natchitoches Parish, not because I catch them on a legal technicality or whatever that if they were living a mile over, they could go to Red River legitimately. But does that answer?
I was kind of thinking about fiduciary responsibility, but you are correct. We do need to make the school, the fact it's happening shows that there's a problem, but I think it's a two-pronged approach. We do have fiduciary responsibility to the parish's taxpayers.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Well, the problem is, in our area, they're buying trailers, we putting them over well, and got several people, got land and things. And
Moving in with grandparents.
yeah, they move.
Well, and we actually, to your point about the fiduciary responsibility, I agree with you, but there's also, it's kind of a weird marriage because when we get a student who doesn't have their proper documentation, we can address that and say, oh no, you should be going to Grant or Rapides. And it's not saying that any district isn't doing what's right, but you're kind of reliant on these other districts to police for you when they receive documentation that they may feel isn't above board or isn't accurate.
One of the things I'd like to say about all this is it's like Reverend Harris said a while ago, it's happening parish-wide. I mean, we have everybody crossing the lines all over the place. But a lot of places where they're going, they have K-12 schools there in those things. It's obvious Natchitoches Parish will never go back to K-12 school. But we are moving, I feel like, in the right direction by trying to get our standards up to where they need to be. We're headed that way as far as shortening the long-term subs. You've worked on that, you've improved that a lot. I think salaries, teacher salaries and stuff, when we get more we can compete with Red River and other areas like that, then we'll see those people come back this way too. And so, the new high school on the south end of this parish, I was here with Mr. Danzy earlier, Mr. Walker was here. I wish I could go to him right now and say, look, it's going to be built. But they've been working on that, how many, 40 years to try to do something like that?
Since 1980.
You know, so it's moving in the right direction.
And I would just say to our board members to support Mr. Danzy, Mr. McTwine, and Ms. Broadway.
That's right.
And that's what I'm basically doing, whatever they need us to do to support them, because really, they're the one who has to deal with the voters in their district.
And if it does end up being a Waterwell Road, if that's the place, that actually will be in a voting district, will be in the Mills voting district, which he will have in school.
Okay. And another thing with what he was asking about the kids going with, if you're in this bordering different parishes, a lot of the addresses is like down at Marco, that's Lena address. So Lena is actually Rapides Parish. So they have addresses, and when they bring it to the school, if they want to go down to boys, they bring it, they got a Rapides Parish address, so they don't research it. Same way out in Boldonna, some of their addresses is Win Parish or whatever. But they live in Natchitoches Parish, but their address is
that's a post office box phenomenon. They're calling the southern part of Natchitoches Parish Lena. And it's not. It's not.
And Celine, we had property in Reedhammer, and Celine,
therefore go to Benville.
That's right.
Yeah, and so it's easy to do it once you bring that address and your light bill and water bill, it got Sabine Parish or Rapides Parish, so they automatically go into school.
That's the reason I say we have to make our parish more attractive. We can do whatever, and offer whatever we can to help draw these people out of the parish back in here.
Well, I think for a long time, we had this discussion the other day, for a long time, Natchitoches Parish Public Schools had a monopoly on schooling. If someone, wasn't happy with us, they might go to the private school, they might not. But we're starting to see in this day and age, whether it be statewide virtual schools or homeschooling groups or all these things, we're not competitive. They're gonna pass us by, because there's some innovative folks out there who are doing some innovative things. And
I stand before you as a person who was in the textbook industry that died. And if you don't stay moving forward in embracing the new technology, and as well as making advancements with forward thinking, you get pushed to the sidelines. And we have to, we're winning the competition when people are coming from other parishes and choosing to come to Natchitoches Parish Schools.
That's right.
Yep.
Or at least we keep our own here. That's when we'll know that, because we have our goal is to have A-rated schools with high quality facilities and the best teachers in the state. That's our goal. And I hope
there's things that are embargoed right now that I can just tell you that stuff's already happening, and there's some big things coming up that will show that there's going to be people in the education community who go, oh, wow, what's going on in Natchitoches? And that's exactly what they're going to be asking themselves. But that's a nice little, in the film industry, we call it a teaser.
As a board member, I just want to say I appreciate you guys doing those exit interviews with parents. I know that goes a long way in their eyes, showing them that we want their students back. And just taking that initiative and doing that is remarkable. I appreciate it.
Were most of them shocked to hear from you?
The ones who had issues, and some of them did have issues with, because I asked them, I said, this is about an exit interview, tell me what we could have done better, tell me what we could do better in the future. And they would say a complaint, an illegitimate complaint, and I would tell them, I said, well, I understand that happened, and it's legitimate, and it's everything. I said, but you said you don't think it's going to be fixed, but when's the last time you got an unsolicited call on a Monday, this was yesterday on my day off, an unsolicited call from the superintendent, And they kind of giggled and they said, well, never, so that's a step in the right direction. I said, what else do I need to do? But no, it was good information for us, and it made people feel valued, which is what we're about, so.
I just wanna say, I think it's great, because it will lessen the capacity at Natchez Central, and we become competitive, and we can get the kids back and get the money back, and we all about the money. But I think that, like I've told you before, like, let's not lose our other schools, and you said it, like, if they got a shiny new gym, make sure Natchez Central and Lakeview has a shiny new gym. If they have a nice upgraded technology, a computer lab, make sure that is at the other schools also. Because those kids are gonna look at that and parents are gonna see that, you know, and they will start comparing.
So what we just said about competitive nature, we want each high school and each elementary, all those schools to be just as competitive, because if you ever have a parent say, I don't wanna go to such and such school, the only person you can be upset with, we tell the principals all the time, you have to be competitive. What are you offering that this school isn't? What are you doing as a principal that makes someone say, I want to send my child to Lee Wascom Academy? You have to be doing those things. So as a district, we are going to fully support every school with everything we have, but we also want to tell our principals that the same thing we're doing with outside of parish, you have to be competitive and innovative in this district, because you want to have that reputation that kids are going to get a good education here and parents are going to be satisfied in that school.
And so we'll be looking at the music and the arts soon.
Oh, yes, indeed.
That's actually, when we presented the Bond 9 changes, particularly within the city schools, the music is a big emphasis in expanding our music.
And we have allotments to a lot of schools in District 9 for that, and we actually have a meeting with kind of the 4 families of music coming to the office, I think, on April 14th.
Right.
That's great.
3:15.
Paparazzi family, like,
I was thinking like mafia families.
All right,
Okay.
let's go another further.
I've got one more option, number 10, if you want me to go ahead and handle that. Yes, sir. Okay, this is just, we don't have the paperwork yet on this one. We currently only offer retirement to people who are full-time. The retirement is not extended to people who are considered part-time. Any tutors, any of the other long-term subs are actually considered part-time. Even though it's not implied in the name, they're actually considered part-time employees. They don't receive benefits of retirement. There is a law that we can take advantage of, where not the Medicare portion, but of the FICA taxes, but the other portion, we can take that money, we withhold it from sending it into the federal government and create a retirement fund out of that money. I would like to, this is basically information that I'm going to present. I was hoping to have the paperwork here before this board meeting, but we would like to, it will be here by the May board meeting, and it's, so if y'all understand what I'm getting at, is of the 7.65% that we pay in, and we also take out of the employee side of their check, we would combine that number and send it to a fund that would act as their retirement. This helps us another way. If a long-term sub, just like what happened, goes from long-term sub, been with us for 10 years, and then becomes now a full-time employee, we can then transition a portion of that money they've been sending in and put it towards their retirement investment. And that's free of charge to us. This actually will save us money.
And Mr. Walson, if I remember correctly, the offsetting of what we pay in, their pay will not change.
Their pay does not change.
Not at all, but they're now getting the benefit of, and to further, what they're paying into Social Security, they will never get enough hours being part-time to fully get the full benefits of that, correct? Yeah, be vested. So this gives them something that's kind of a retirement fund.
It's kind of like, it's actually a very good, there is no lose on this. We save money, and they have the portion that was being sent to Social Security, There's one portion of Medicare and the other portion of Social
And the big
Security.
thing is,
Social Security portion
we
now
told
goes.
the group, not only will they get this retirement, but we wanna pay a portion where their take-home pay does not change 1 penny. So, we're saving money, they're getting the same amount, plus an added benefit that they can take part in.
And in addition, if they become a long-term employee, we can then take that contribution they made over the years and then transition it into their retirement.
So is that something we need to be bonded for, like an ERISA bond, or is that a company that?
Well, the company that proposed it was First Financial. They're people we've already contracted through our cafeteria plans and stuff right now. They actually haven't, I don't have that kind of depth of knowledge. I think they use similar words, but it was a luncheon, kind of a simple meeting. But we wanted to pursue that, getting that for you. We will have the exact details with the documents.
And they've implemented this in other districts.
They
Because
have this.
I'll be honest with you, I kept saying, I was like, okay, where's the catch? And they're like, oh, it's not a catch, this is, benefit. And I was like, yeah, but why is it gonna benefit both of us? Because you just expect it not to, but they gave us districts that are doing this that have had very large savings, because they're much larger districts, but we would see significant savings, but at the end of the day, the better thing is, it's benefiting some employees that always feel like they're kind of left behind.
Absolutely, yeah.
It's giving them something else that they've never had as a true retirement plan. Okay.
That concludes mine.
Speak.
I'm sorry, I broke the protocol here.
Hello. We're still maintaining and getting better. When we get tired, our hope dealer, hope dealer. Hope dealer, okay, I don't want you to get that wrong. Shares something incredible and possible. If you look at our agenda, you see that, we lose a few, we gain a few, and this month, we have lost another one of our employees. It's always a tremendous loss when we lose one of our own. I've worked with Mr. Garrett at East, and I tell you, he was one of the most articulate men. He was our custodian there, and I got in trouble a lot of days for some of the things that I put on the wall. I like to share my students' work, and sometimes pieces would fall off, and he would give me a good little lashing because I messed up his hall. But he left, his last assignment was with the maintenance department, and again, it is a loss. If you will look at your agenda, I want you to take the time to look at it and see if you have any questions. As you know, most of my report is written, unlike Mr. Watson.
So has your COVID volume gone down now?
It has gone down a whole lot. But we still have those occasions where we have to do a little bit extra. I also want to say that we are being noticed. Things are changing. Many of the calls and emails that we get are from people in other districts and other states. So we are getting better, and the word is getting out. Now, I don't know if it's the Hope dealer or our media person, but the word is getting out.
Everybody.
Okay. Do we have any questions? Okay. Thank you.
What?
We got back up again.
No, I'm just gonna say, you notice how few words she used.
Are you implying I need to shorten it up?
She's very laconic.
Do y'all have copies of the grant and administrator and the grant writer? Good. I don't have it in my package. I'm glad y'all have it. I would like to present to y'all job descriptions for the grant writer and the grant administrator. Now let's talk about the grant writer first. I have in the audience tonight is Miss, there she is, Miss Amy Thompson. She works for us currently, but she would like to She would be hired by us and write grants as needed, and would be paid only when needed. So I was going to invite her up here to kind of tell her the difference. Now, in theory, the building behind us, the federal funds flow to Miss Julie Wright. You know, they say, well, here's how many children you have in this particular category. Here's how much money you have, and this is how much. Please tell us how you're going to spend it. This is different. This is us fishing to receive money from different areas. Miss Thompson, I'd like to invite up to tell you her experience with some of the grants she's written. And just for a few minutes.
It told me to stand. I'm sorry, my Apple Watch told me to stand. It wasn't anything about it.
So, right now, the vast majority of our Title I money is coming in. It's about $4.7 million a year. We have several people administrating. It's required. It's what a school board does. This is trying to reach out and find new money. FEMA is a good example. Currently, we're not set up to manage FEMA back there. It's under my purview, and it's a lot. So we have also hired on a temporary basis. Hopefully, we can make it permanent at this next few board meetings, well, on Thursdays, to approve the grant administrator. We have another lady as well as Ms. Thompson that would be grant writing potentially, and it would only be asked to write grants when needed and as they come up. So that's a variable job. The permanent job would be that I'm asking for as a grant administrator. Currently, I estimate that the FEMA bill is somewhere between 1.3 and 1.4 million, maybe as high as 1.6 million. However, the FEMA keeps adding, which we brought up earlier, how much they might expand the projects to. This could go as high as $3 million worth of repairs for Hurricane Laura. There's also, we have a grant, they have a grant, and they're begging me to help spend it for them, for Section 406 in FEMA, but all this takes tremendous amounts of administration. They pay us 5% of everything, all the money they send to us. They send us an additional 5% to pay for our administrator. So if you just add up what we have on our plate now, it's literally, we have enough money to pay our grant administrator that I've hired on a temporary basis because we're just so far behind with FEMA, that we have enough to pay her whole salary for more than a year just with what's in store with FEMA over the next little bit. All right, so I'd like to bring Miss Amy Thompson, Dr. Amy Thompson up here to have a few words about what's involved. But I want to make sure y'all understand, we're not stepping on any of the toes of the current Media One building and all the stuff that goes on. This has nothing, this is above and beyond. This is like going after Weyerhaeuser, IP. This is fishing and also other federal grants we would not normally look. So instead of the stuff landing on our desk and then managing that, this is us going to fishing for it, which is what grant writers are doing. And then once it's here, having the grant administrator doing like what Julie Wright does to administrate the successful, let's say, buying a generator for the food service warehouse area. We buy a big generator. You have to file all this paperwork, fill it all in, send it all in, take all these pictures, and sometimes some grant people want to actually see it, if they contributed to it. So anyhow, we need that to be managed. I think this is an exciting new area. So I'd like to invite for just a few moments Dr. Amy Thompson as a grant writer, one of our potential grant writers.
Good evening.
Good evening.
He already said a lot of what he asked me to already say, and I'm sure that I'm going to reiterate what you just mentioned. But one of the things that I have currently done is I'm a grant writer for the city of Natchitoches. And why that is important is because I've learned several things in that process. I've been doing for several years. It started with Mayor Posey. Creating partnerships within our community, working together, is one thing that I've learned that is really expounded, because grant donors like to see not just what Natchitoches Parish School Board is going to do, but what about IP, Weyerhaeuser, the Natchitoches Regional Hospital. How are we working together as a community to make things better? So, you mentioned fishing. So basically, this is how this works. If there is something, let's go with a generator, because that's the first thing that I've heard. When we need to look for a generator, then I'm gonna look for grants, that it falls in line with that. And every corporation usually has an area, large corporations have an area designated to give for grants. It's good for them, because they can then show that, the money that they're spending out. And at that point in time, my responsibility is going to be to find the grants, to research on the generators, because I know nothing about generators, but I gotta speak about it, so I've gotta tell the story, I've gotta explain why is it important that Natchitoches Parish School Board has generators, or one generator more. What will it do? How will it help the school board? You see where I'm going with this? The benefit of that is, I do have 15 years experience in this particular district, and I've worked on the special ed side and I've worked on the general ed side. I know how it works in both areas. I bring that to the table. Sometimes I've even brought state standard scores to show how it benefits students. I did that when I worked for the city writing the farmers market. So, I guess the best thing that you need to understand is that the grant writer responsibility is to tell the story so that we can get the funds. And then I sit back and then I'll let Sarah do the rest. And what that would be is she will then receive the money. She will then find those items that need to be purchased. And it's just a constant rotation of knowing where the money is, what needs to be purchased, how it's going to be used. A lot of communication has to take place. She's going to have to cultivate that strong communication between the school system and who is giving money. And then where we're buying it. So there's a lot involved, but it is very doable. And as I understand, the parish has a real chance of obtaining some real money to do some things that we need to do. Things that Dr. Eloy has already presented to you. And other things that I'm sure that are out there that they haven't even discovered that we need. So does that basically answer some of the questions? And the thing that you need to understand is the part that I thought was really interesting. Title I is dealing with instruction, curriculum, what we need to teach, right? This is all the other stuff that we need. And there's so much people don't realize.
Yes, playgrounds, playgrounds, there's all kinds of things we've done.
And so with that, I will have to research the different regulations required for playgrounds. So there's a lot of research that goes into it, but once you build that story, it will sell itself. That's my job.
Do you want to mention your one you wrote about at Northwestern?
Okay, all right, so that was actually my husband, who also worked with me in the grant writing. We're forming an LLC, all right? But the way that I will handle this is just through stipend. He wrote a grant for Kappa at NSU, and it was to get more instruments in. And it also works with the music ed program. And there were, I don't remember how many actually grants that were submitted, how many applications, it was in the hundreds. 32 were awarded, and his was the third in line. And what that means is when you write a grant, it's kind of like writing a paper, you get a grade on it, and you have a rubric, and you have to answer all the questions. And he was very successful. I've been successful in the grants that I've written. My last 2 grants I wrote were for the fire department, and that was with FEMA. And why that's important is because those are the same types of grants that he's talking about. They are large. Now understand this too. When we write large grants, it takes a long time to do it, and it takes a lot of people to do it too. It's not going to just be me. It's going to be me and a team of people that all have to pull in lots of questions just to get the information so I can get very exact on the story. Do y'all have any questions?
So do you write yourself into the grant?
Good question. Self-funding. With FEMA grants, they actually have an area where they do pay grant fees. And that is not often, but with the larger grants, they realize the work involved. And so they do bring that in. I can't say with 100% all grants will be like that, but some are.
And then I do understand collaboration, because they look big time at who are you collaborating with.
Right.
How much how broad is it in helping others
Exactly.
with what you're doing?
Well, and as you can imagine, I mean, here's how I explained it to the lady the other day. I said, like, the more complex grants are like a very complex recipe, okay? It's not something that's simple. It's gonna take a lot of steps to get it done. But as long as you can follow the recipe, you can get the grant. And so that's kind of my best analogy on it. Any other questions? All right, thanks for your time.
Thank you. So, I was about several weeks ago before the spring break. I said, Dr. Eloy, I'm sorry, we're way behind on FEMA, and it's very important. So he allowed me to hire on a temporary basis, Sarah Buckhalter. Once this project, which will take months to finish, is finished, I would like, then she's actually been hired as a temporary employee, so I don't want to make the assumption you're all going to approve this. I want to make that clear. However, I would like to bring her up here and briefly tell her maybe her background and stuff, but would like to ask that we approve her position at a pay. Now she would be a full-time permanent employee, okay, with an office, a computer, the whole thing, a phone if I can ever get her. See if you tell her to deliver it for her. What I would like to ask is that we approve the job description as presented for her, and the rate of pay would be around $32,000. Okay. And so anyhow, I want to make sure that it's clear. We hired her on a temporary basis, but I'm asking that if we approve the grant position here this week, that I would then put her in that position. So if y'all would like to hear from Sarah.
Before you go there.
Sure.
Did we have anybody doing this before?
No.
Were we receiving FEMA funds and who was administrating it?
Yes, the person in my position in the past has administrated, but like for instance, you had the 2016 flood.
Right.
FEMA would show up with the whole group of people, and they would spend time and go get invoices, and they'd spend a while and get it all done, and then leave and give me a list. And I wish it were that easy, but it's not been. They have been unable because of COVID to show up. They have expected us to take on all those responsibilities, and there's no extra funding for us. And quite frankly, it's a lot. Of all 12 of our campuses were damaged. See, when we had the flood, we didn't have all 12 of our campuses damaged by the flood. You know, I mean, there was some damage, but it was like Natchitoches Central, and we had certain specific ones that had damage. But in this particular instance, all of our locations have been damaged. Like, for instance, in the winter, really essentially like 3 of our campuses had burst pipes and all these other things that we're going to ask for refund for. This in particular situation with Hurricane Laura, though, has been enormous. And because of their inability to help us, as they normally would, in our massiveness of the project, and also the hope then, after we conclude what's now called Section 407 of their 404 of their funding, I would then like to enter in discussions with FEMA for 406. And I would like to ask that Sarah help me with this. So basically, all she does is stay on the phone constantly with FEMA every day. And it's an everyday thing. Because we have 12 site inspections. We have paperwork for all those inspections. We have pictures we have to take. We have to go back. They prefer pictures before the storm, which is hard to give them. Like I was saying, we literally take pictures of the stuff in the dumpster that's been thrown in the dumpster. We have to tell them the GPS location of a tree that fell, which is no longer there, and where it actually, the GPS location where it got disposed of. Very detailed work. And quite frankly, it's really hard for a person in my position to do all that effort with all the other things we're trying to accomplish in this district. So I had asked Dr. Eloy and employed him, please, we need the help, because we're about to lose all this funding and I don't want to lose it.
So FEMA will basically sustain this
her for over a year.
position?
Yes, for over a year or two, but just based on what I have on her plate to handle the next 2. I mean, if you take, let's say, it all ends up being $2 million, you take 5% of that, that's $100,000. that's enough to easily cover what I've asked for here for a couple of years. And so what I'd like to ask is that we use this we have a great opportunity to use what's happening with FEMA to pay her, and in the gaps when she has break moments, to also start developing the funding. And I like what Amy said, that we do have, that the Title I administrates curriculum-based grants, but we will need facilities-based and, purpose-based grants for other things beyond just curriculum. And that's where I'm trying. I think this is a big market. For instance, I think the city has won several major grants, and I would like to take advantage of that. We're certainly capable. So immediately, I want to let y'all know, Gabe Furman has told us that we can get the broadband funding from a different source.
Right.
Okay, so remember, you were at that meeting?
Yeah.
I think it's up to 17 million for this district. Okay,
Yeah.
so let's say that we're going to take our ESSER 2, 3 money and use it to deploy our broadband. Well now, and I'm estimating that's going to be somewhere between $5 and $10 million to do all that. Right? Depends on how expensive and where we're going, how detailed we want to do this. Well, if we can get 70 or 80% paid out of this other grant, which also will come with fees that they will add with that, that's a big deal for us. Because then we can now have that savings, our ESSER money, ESSER 2 and 3 money, to deploy elsewhere in other projects that we currently are not aware of. But we have, 3-4 years to actually, 5 years to use all this stimulus money. So if I can, I'm trying to use this team to develop other options for funding from sources that we don't yet see. And I believe, but right now, let's say they didn't find anything. I don't find that possible. But let's say they didn't find anything. We still have enough funding with FEMA to cover Sarah's payroll for 2 years from what is sizing up. So that, what I'm asking is for at least for the next 2 years. I'm going to be honest with you, for at least the next 2 years, I believe what FEMA's 5% portion will pay and cover her payroll. However, I believe that they as a team, and more to be added with other maybe grant writers, because the grant writers can be whoever, because we're just hiring them to write these grants, and then we no longer pay them until they write the next grant for us. And so we just need to make sure the grant writers aren't conflicting.
Right.
They're not writing for the same money. But because obviously this grant writing is about networking. Like I'd like to send Sarah Burkhalter down to Baton Rouge for the grant writing training. I'd like to do all that as well. So just have a well-trained grant writing. I can tell you this, my experience with Lafayette Tourist Commission, a third of their funding, $20 million of their funding came from writing grants. That's all that this lady did. She just wrote grants and drove to Baton Rouge and asked for more money. And they did, it's much bigger than the Natchitoches Tourist Commission. But the fellow who came up here, his name was Gerald Bro, he shared all this. It's all public information, but the vastly, I say it's a third of their funding, but it may have been vastly more. It depends on what, he mentioned $20 million was their average yearly income from grant writing. And he says, it's important, you have to understand, you have to go out and get it. You have to drive to Baton Rouge. You have to go ask for it. You have to know it's there to be asked for. So this is what I'm saying, you have to know where in the lake to go fish. You have this broad area, it looks massive, but you have to learn where to go fishing for these grants and what's available out there. A lot of grants, I don't know if y'all know it, a lot of grants go unused because almost nobody applies for them. That's just too much paperwork to skip it, And so I would like to ask y'all, on this day, we have an opportunity to have FEMA pay for Sarah's pay. We will pay the grant writers as it goes, and that's what I'm asking for approval. And I hope that y'all buy into this vision. I think it's not going to cost my goal is it's not to cost our district anything.
But you said they're only going to pay for 2 years?
Yes, ma'am. That's all I can promise you at that point. Then I'm hoping, let's say, that if we have, quite frankly, they have to go out and earn their keep.
It's a contract situation. Is it a contract
No ma'am, it's just, no ma'am. Are you saying, are we getting into an employee contract with Sarah Burkhalter?
Yes.
Would
So
you?
you say
Would I?
If it
they're
was a
paid
2-year
per grant that's written, so it's not like a specific type of contract with them in the school board?
Now, she's
We're not-
gonna
we're
be
not-
a payroll employee, right?
She's gonna be a.
I know one, I think the grant administrator and the FEMA, they're dealing with FEMA, is going to, be getting benefits and everything, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And as board members, our job is to make sure that it's sustainable. That's at the end of the day.
Well, I actually feel that's my responsibility to make sure
Right.
this is, I need to be able to justify to y'all that this is actually something. If this falls flat on its face, then we'll have to take action.
Well,
I don't think it will either. I'm very positive about this.
But
We
we're
were at
not
that
sure
meeting.
about those instructional teachers either after so many years or whatever. You said that they may not, the state, somebody may not pay after.
Well, I will say this, with the ESSER 2 and 3 funds that we have, you've got probably 5 years of funding, for sure. You're right, long term, who knows where it ends, but who knew this was coming up where we're at now? It is important to know that, are you saying can they retire doing this? I can't guarantee you Sarah Burkhalter, none of us can do that.
No, I think what they're asking is, if you get in a situation where you're 2 years down the road and
Nothing's happened.
Nothing's happened, I think, is there a mechanism within a contractual agreement with the employee that, there's gotta be targets hit, is what they're asking.
Because I understood asking, to hire the administrator full-time, but you said something about the grant writer will be paid
As they
as
were.
they.
So they're variable.
Basically, I think, as mentioned, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, you're writing yourself in to the grants that you can write yourself in.
Wait a minute, I'm sorry, I'm writing myself into.
Right.
Each grant, she's able to write herself in, right?
You get paid.
But as it pertains to the FEMA person,
Right.
FEMA gives, money
5% of the money they said they.
for what they're already sending.
So if they, correct, let's say that they fix it magnets $100,000, they will add $5,000 as administration. They do this as well with Julie, it's 19%.
So, can I?
Certainly.
I'd like to put maybe a bow on this, because what I'm thinking is, the board seems like, in theory, this makes sense, but I think the major concern is, if it doesn't become self-funding, so could we sit down before Thursday and come to them with a mechanism by which it resolves itself if it's not self-funding?
Okay, certainly.
Does that?
I think that would be great.
Okay.
Because at the end of the day, some of these board members have experienced some things that they don't want to experience anymore, and so.
Well, I certainly don't want to make promises to anyone that I can't keep. Right, yeah. So, we don't want to make, permanent decisions on short-term funding.
Yes.
I get the point.
Okay.
So, all right, so would y'all like to, I'd like to bring
Yes,
Sarah
yes.
Burkhalter up here. Sarah, please introduce you since we've been talking about you.
Well, good evening. My name is Sarah Burkhalter, and should I just say a little bit about myself?
Yeah, sure.
I'm from right here in Natchitoches. I am a young professional, however, I am very eager to learn, and I feel like the foundation of my career has been ultimately servant leadership, communication, and really jumping in feet first to whatever, or head first, however you say that, into whatever I get myself involved in. I would say I'm very dedicated and committed and would like to have the opportunity to make an impact wherever I land. Right now with this FEMA projects, I'm in constant contact with all of our representatives, so it is a very high touch, like it is lots of phone calls, lots of emails, but I'm trying to get everything organized so we can keep that project moving. So, and if any questions at all, just let me know.
All right.
For the executive report, we're going to move with item number 2 in the.
Yeah. Yes, and so I told Mr. Ferdinand I knew they were coming out of Shreveport, so I thought they were gonna be running late, so we put them towards the end, and then we have been waxing poetic. But I know him and Ms. Lyles have been enthralled, so, but I appreciate them so much waiting patiently. So I would like to introduce our new Executive Director of Economic Development.
Yes.
Mr. Mike Ferdinand.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for the opportunity to address you this evening. Mike Ferdinand, Natchitoches Community Alliance. You know, I really have enjoyed actually watching this exchange because you're talking about something I deal with every day, and it's called competition. So, and you have to think of it in two ways, really. So, from my side, I work with, of course, recruiting new business. That's the fun part of economic development, which is you have the big announcement, you have the big construction, but that's only part of what the bread and butter of what we do is. Actually, the backbone of economic development is also to work with existing business. So as you and I are sitting here today, I got to ask the question, how many competitors are there for your students? Think about that for a minute. Okay? Now think of it this way, there are 1,500 competitors for our businesses in this parish. That's how many communities are out there engaged in the economic development process. So, you know, when I see our neighbors, especially further away neighbors, right? That's a potential recruitment for me. Their businesses. So, you know, when and how I will come before this board most of the time is going to be dealing with ITEP, the incentive that's primarily used for economic development that you folks play a major role in. Thank you for that, by the way. So, but it's so important that we also consider how it affects our existing business. Think of it this way. So, we have a business here, they're part of a corporation. There may be 5 or 10 other sites of this in the U.S. or somewhere in the world, right? And like y'all, they have a finite amount of funds that they can spend for new projects, right? So that corporation has to make the decision of where are we going to make that investment? And the awesome responsibility you folks have is to decide, thumbs up or thumbs down, are we going to help this business move forward in Natchitoches Parish or City, right? And what you're doing, supporting our business, especially if it's existing, is extending the life of that business. Because when companies stop reinvesting in their facilities, you have set a finite lifespan. So your parents that are working at these facilities may end up not having the job security going into the future that they would otherwise have without this investment. So it's critical. The other side of that is, so every day, site locators, I hate those guys, okay? Those are the professionals that are retained to decide where is the best place to locate facilities. Your larger companies usually hire these. And they are online, they get projects, and they do a preliminary review of communities. They're looking at us. So the decisions we make on how we treat our existing business directly affect the businesses we can recruit. They're tied together. And we'll never know if we've been eliminated or not. We would get a request for proposal if we haven't been eliminated in that initial review from the state or from the Regional Economic Development Organization. And then it's a matter of selling ourselves. And what we want to do is show Natchitoches in an absolutely fantastic light because you have a great community here. And my focus is simple. Let's grow the tax base. That's more revenue for y'all, by the way. To help you educate our folks. And to pay checks and jobs. That's it. That's all. I look forward to working with you. You know, it's one of those, when the State Board of Commerce and Industry clears one of those applications, they've done an initial review that's determined that this project is going to be a positive impact for the state and for our region. That's when I get to visit you again. Now, I'm going to visit periodically just to make sure I understand what's going on. I like to visit the public bodies. And I want you to get to know you because the next time you see me, I may be working a project or not, but I want you to know kind of who I am. I have an open door policy, and I want you to understand what the projects are before you take action on them. So questions, comments, and blessings, I take them all. I have an open door policy. And was there anything you'd like to discuss on economic development?
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Can you bring a walk-on?
You know, that's kind of interesting. So, second tier jobs, we call them second tier because they're not manufacturing, they're not agriculture, they're not fisheries, they're not that primary job, that first tier. A lot of them are formula driven, right? So if you meet the criteria, and you have a site that fits their criteria, you have a shot at them. So there you go. Well, think of it this way, okay? I love to use Walgreens as an example. You got a Walgreens right over here, okay? How does Walgreens decide where they're going to go? Everyone know that?
They look for a corner lot.
They do, with a high traffic count. And ideally, they like to flank a Walmart. But why? Because that's who their competition is. They want to catch the folks that don't want to go to Walmart. Nothing against Walmart. But, and it's, you know, part of my job is to take requests like yours and see if we can meet those criteria. And because at the end of the day, businesses that are in a growth mode want to be able to maximize their investment in the community. And that's what they're looking for. Anything else? Thank you folks so very much. Laura, was there anything you want to add? Did I leave anything out?
You did perfect.
Okay. Thank you again. I look forward to presenting to you on something more exciting.
Thank you for your time. Thank you.
Okay, item number 1, discuss giving out faculty and staff an extra paycheck in appreciation of the COVID work during COVID-19. Ms. Palmer.
Okay, I asked that this item be placed on the agenda because I thought that this would be a great way to show appreciation to our employees for all the hard work and perseverance they have put in this school year. I'm fortunate enough to work for a company where I can socially distance myself at a great extent and be outside most of the time. But the fear, anxiety, and paranoia of the pandemic still raises its ugly head over me every day, even with my advantages. So just think about all our employees in the parish who enters into a building on a daily basis where the ventilation is not that good and they are interacting with a lot of people in a day's time. The PPE hasn't been 100% effective, and being in close contact with others in an environment where you can't detect where COVID might be lingering has got to be mentally, physically, and emotionally draining on them. Most likely, they are not only thinking about themselves, but the students, other staff, and their own children and family members. It's like they have been thrown on a battlefield and or in the lion's den on a daily basis, but Jesus has sustained them. And with that being said, they deserve a monetary appreciation for enduring. And I will say to our board members, the superintendent, and anyone else, with all due respect, if you feel or think they are sufficient with their salaries, bonuses, and MFP stipend, you're sadly mistaken. In a pandemic or not in a pandemic, we should always, if we financially can, show them our appreciation for their service to this parish. And I heard you say earlier that there may be stipulations on the COVID relief money, but they are listening to us. They see us hiring all these different positions. And it's discouraging because it's like, where are you getting this money from? And basically, it's not fair, but I think we should, if we can, we should find a way to give them something.
So I don't disagree. So what we've been talking about, there are other districts who've already put this out there. I do want to mention, I won't mention the names of these districts, but some of them saw an increase in tax revenue, which we've also seen, but many of these districts don't give out all their tax revenue. We give out all that sales tax because like we've seen really big checks this year at Christmas, and we are anticipating that we're going to see that again in July. So that's one thing, and they did it through that means. Some of them did not see the MFP shortage that we saw. Now, that being said, what we have been looking at is the ESSER 2 funding, which is the federal funds, and I've been in discussions with the lawyers from Hammonds and Seals, because there are some areas that say that stipends can be paid for COVID preparedness. And so what we are discussing are some possibilities in terms of what mechanism can we find in order to give a stipend to all employees. Now, what we have to be careful of is there's a legal delineation between what you're talking about and what we can do. We are not allowed to give payment for work already produced. So you cannot, if you own a private business, you can give a bonus and say, hey, we really did well this quarter. In a public entity, we cannot do that based on, legislative, auditor, and all that stuff. It would be a finding, and our lawyers have told us not no, but heck no. But what we can do, and what we would like you to give us the month of April to fully investigate and fully flesh out, is what we would like to do is look at a possible training module, a small training module about COVID preparedness that everyone in the district would take after hours. It would be simply viewing a video and doing some training. They would log in, do that for a time period, and then they would receive a stipend. We're not sure what that dollar amount is yet, and I don't want to dedicate ourselves to a specific dollar amount. But by doing that small amount of work that is essential because it's COVID preparedness, that would allow us, we believe, we're talking to the lawyers, and they initially are saying that they agree, that then we could give that, I'm going to call it money over and above their current salary, that one-time stipend for that work. And it would be a way to say, hey, we're preparing for COVID, and also an alternative means of showing appreciation while not doing it in a way that would put us in a bind with the legislative auditor. So it's also my view that this would not be an amount that would be differentiated based on years experience or I'm a teacher, I'm a custodian. It would be a flat amount to everyone. There is one group that I would actually want to possibly look at an extra training because they were here during the shutdown. They were doing things during the true shutdown, and they may have an ability to do another training. But that's the kind of mechanism we're thinking about it. We have to flesh out a lot of details because I'll tell y'all, it sounds relatively simple. Myself, I thought so, to say, let's give out a one-time stipend to people based on these variables. There's a lot of nuance and potholes in this process, as we found in our 2-hour meeting today discussing who would benefit from this, how would they benefit, how would we go about the mechanism for actually putting the training out, and then how would we retain the paper trail to justify that this was work in excess done after hours with a timestamp, all that stuff. So if you can give me the month, what we would like to do is present this to y'all in May, a plan, and then with a possibility of a possible June payout, so they have the entire month of May into a little bit of June to take this training, so it would be at their kind of leisure to figure out, and then we would run a payroll in June for this, and then that would allow you to, and I love the timing because that would give them a possible stipend in June and their tax check in July.
But, what time frame in June? Because June is one of their hardest months also. Because they go from, they're out June 4th, so when do they get paid?
Well, they get paid for the
That
month of
Friday?
May, they get paid for the month of May in June, correct, Mr. Ross?
They get paid for the month of May just at the end of May.
Yeah, and then they would have are you talking about long-term subs, or are you talking
No, I'm
about?
talking about, well, regular payroll, because I know long-term subs is like the 15, 14, 16, like in the middle.
So I'm sorry, but.
Okay, no, I was trying to see, like, the time frame. Okay, so they're gonna get paid on the 28th of May? That's the last is it the last Friday or the last working day?
It's the last working day.
So they'll get paid on the 31st of May, right?
We're looking to fund this through the ESSER 2 funds, which don't get distributed to us until June. So we would have them do whatever activity they use to do this, and the funds become available in June. At that point, we would,
So it'll be.
and it is something that qualifies as ESSER 2 fundable.
Okay. So June?
Yes, but the question would be, you have to perform these functions in order to get this money.
Can
So
you
we
get
want-
it to them by the end of May?
No, ma'am. I don't see it because we have to give them plenty of time. If y'all approve it at the May board meeting, which is what, May 2nd or
Right.
4th? Let's say May 4th, y'all vote on it. We would immediately put it out so they can start taking their training. We then have to take all the 1,000, well, however number of employees, they would then take this training. And we'd have to give them some reasonable amount of time to go online and take this training. Once that we can't just say, 3
So
weeks.
how long will the training be?
We're discussing that right now. We would not want to make it, we would want to make it able to be completed in an evening. So we're not talking about 5 hours or anything like that. We're talking about you sit in front of a computer screen, or we'd like to make it actually where you can access this via your phone, and you're taking this training in probably 2-3 hour period maximum. But it can also be split up over multiple days, and that's why we want to give them the full time to do that.
So if we're approving this in the 1st of May at our board meeting, why it just can't be ready for them to be able to do it?
Because it's unrealistic to think that everybody's gonna jump on in 3 days.
Why not? That's.
But the funding is not
The
going
funding not
to
gonna come
be
till
available.
June, so you can't
Right.
pay them before you get the money. That's what he just said, we won't get the money till June.
Yeah, that's the problem.
So you can't pay them, mayor can't pay them the 1st of June, you got to wait till you get the money. We might, they say
But
June,
they
but
still,
we might not
they
get.
still can take it in May.
Certainly,
I mean-
that's why I'd like to have it all ready to go. We have to gather the list together, we have to see which employees did and did not take it, go remind them to go take it, ask those to take it.
But that would be feasible to give it early because you won't be jammed up when June comes.
Well, you just, let's
So
take,
the
let's
funding's
take the
not gonna be
survey, well, the funding won't be there until May.
Yeah,
I'm not talking
June.
about the funding, I'm just talking about administering, distributing the program.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
We will be doing that throughout the month of May, but I think based on the survey, we put out a survey, we realize a large portion actually of our employees don't have easy access to the internet to do the survey. And that's why we're gonna do this training, is through the internet. So we want to make sure everybody has time and access. Ample time to get in there and do the survey so they don't miss out on this stipend. So we just don't wanna leave anybody out and upset them because they feel like they.
And let me-
not have
So what
opportunity.
if they don't do it by a certain amount of time?
Well, we would send out reminders, but I want to be there. I'm not going to name any districts, but there are districts who went about this in the wrong fashion, and are currently facing some trouble. So pretty serious trouble.
It was on the TV this morning, lawsuits, with the money.
Well, I'm not saying for us to go about this in the wrong fashion.
No, that's what I'm just saying. We're being.
Let me say this.
I'm just asking questions, I like to ask.
Let me say this. In working with Dr. Eloy and Mr. Wascom, I think they put in some extremely hard work because when I came in here, they let me know what is going on. I tried to contact you so that you would know as well what's going on. I'm thinking that in good faith, that the way it's gonna be done is going to work for all sides. And the reason being is because if we mess around and do this wrong, and I think I've talked to all of the board members before, everybody's for this. we don't have no problem about passing it and everything. The thing of it is making sure it's done the right way and rolled out the right way. That's the most important.
And I'll be honest with you, I hate the idea that we're having to give them an assignment in order to do this, but
Right?
it's the only mechanism that we have been able to find that is both legal, and really that's really the legal, but also a process that isn't so cumbersome where we're asking them to go insanely above and beyond.
It's almost just like semantics, what's going on, you know.
We just need to make sure we handle this legally, so we don't expose ourselves to unwarranted litigation, because we just need to manage it properly.
But
Well, on the record, I'm not asking anybody to do anything legal, illegally, okay?
yes, ma'am. No, and we don't think you are, but
Let's make that clear.
we just want to be sure that we're doing, and some of this is daily phone calls with the lawyers to make sure it's done correctly. Now, you know, it also goes to being good stewards of the taxpayer dollar, but we do believe, based on, you know, you look nationwide, many districts are doing things like this, but we want to be good stewards, but also recognize that this has been an exceptionally difficult year.
That's right. And I remember telling, when they gave me all the, stuff that this, money, would cover, I told, Dr. Eloy, well, God dang, everything they done is over and beyond, but we have to make sure that it is documented, the right way, so that we won't get hit.
Right. And make sure wherever the money coming, that they're saying it's okay, cause the lawyer might say it's okay, and then they give the money, and the people where the money coming for say it's not okay, and then we in a lawsuit, and then the lawyer's making money off our lawsuit.
So what I'll provide y'all with,
All costs is more than we gave out.
I can provide y'all with Thursday. LDOE has issued guidance, and there's some specific lines in there that speak to this directly. But then what we've done is we've also talked to Hammond, Seals, and Geis and said, okay, this is what LDOE is telling us, but then you have the kind of the legislative auditor side. How do we meet those in the middle? And so we feel like we're on the right track with both those groups. It's just we need this month to get it solidified.
I appreciate the discussion, and I've told you before that one of the things I admire about you is your passion to get teachers money.
Yes.
Like, if there's a reason why you're at this table, you want to make sure people are paid and paid well. And I look forward to supporting whatever this looks like in May, or April, whatever.
Well, thank you for saying that, Ms. Phelps. Would, all the board members like to contribute their monthly May salary to this cause?
Money to pay for.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, we're gonna get behind it, let's be behind it.
Well, the thing is, we have teacher appreciation coming up too, so if we, you know, normally.
Not touching that.
I'm just asking. You are a bad boy.
No, but I do think there's going to be some discretionary things in the month of May for teacher appreciation that I think the board has always been very supportive
Right,
of.
and we look forward to that as well.
Yes, ma'am.
Let me say this, Billy, if it was about that check, most of us give our check away,
Absolutely.
during the, month anyway.
I agree with you. I agree with you.
Our board is very generous.
So, all right, all of that said, I
think we said it all.
yes, indeed. Motion to approve.